This episode of the Mental for Moto Inside the Helmet podcast is brought to you by Fastline Suspension. Are you getting arm pump, fatiguing after just a few laps, or feel like you're often fighting against your bike? Today's motorcycles have been designed and built to suit a broad range of riders, conditions and riding styles. This one-size-fits-all approach, however, means that when it comes to your own riding, your bike is often not handling and performing at its very best. Whether you're a weekend warrior or an elite level racer, Fastline Suspension will help you unlock your riding potential by ensuring your bike is set up perfectly for your specific needs. And with the right setup, you're guaranteed to go faster, fatigue less, and ultimately have more fun riding your motorcycle. So what are you waiting for? Contact Adam at Fastline Suspension now. Fastline Suspension, set up for maximum performance, precision tuned for you.
There were times I was lost, dark had fear, couldn't see through the rain. In the end it was clear, hit the fan. I was more than one man who was there to lend a hand. Together we'd stand, always at my back, my guardian soldier. Team pulled together, united we conquer. Blessed is he who in the name of charity carry me when I'm weak, straight through the valley of darkness. Pitch blackness, the heartless, regardless, fear couldn't part us. Thick and thin, there by my side. At times we collide, but in the end we ride. Thick and thin, there by my side. At times we collide, but in the end we ride. We ride, ride.
Welcome back, Moto fans. Today we are going inside the helmet with one of the legends of Aussie motocross and supercross. Before we get into it, a big thank you to our partners for this episode, Fastline Suspension, who brings you our guest today, Southeast Pools, Iro Helmets, Wolf Building Compliance, Ultimate Toy Haulers, and the February sponsor of the Mental for Moto Motocross and Supercross wall calendars, available on the Mental for Moto website now, O'Donnell Motorcycles. Now, it is a privilege to welcome today's guest into the Moto Asylum. Like I said, he is a legend of the sport. He's been racing dirt bikes for over 44 years and competed in pro motocross and supercross all around the world from 1994 to 2009. Off the bike, he has influenced the next generation of riders as the Yamaha Junior Race Team manager from 2011 to 2022 and as a riding coach for over 30 years. To add to that, at the age of 52, he's still racing competitively today, and he's now also a moto-dad to a likely future superstar of the sport. So it is my pleasure to welcome Cameron Taylor to the Moto Asylum. How you going, Cam?
I'm good. Thanks, mate. Thanks a lot for the intro.
No, it's there is so much information about you out there. I had to try to condense it.
Yeah, well, like I said to you before we started this, me trying to remember the details is the hard part. Haven't had any head injuries, but my memory is a bit vague on some of these things, but I try my best.
No, all good, mate. I'm sure there'll be plenty of stories that we can talk about. Before we get into it, mate, what have you been up to recently?
Dad, most importantly, then working, trying to pay the bills. I work for a company called CSA Specialise, so we work on roads and rail and all the major projects, stuff like that. I've been doing that. Got into that through coaching. Used to coach the guy's son who owned that place.
Oh, yeah. What do you actually do there?
Hydro excavations, where we dig holes in the ground, basically with a giant vacuum cleaner, which is a truck, and we find surfaces, power, water, gas, all sort of stuff. So then they can dig it mechanically without damaging things, So as well as drain cleaning, and they do a lot of emergency work, all sorts of things. So it's a really big company, big jobs. I work mainly night shift for them, which seems to work. Obviously pays better, but also works well with me being able to fit in a bit of coaching around everything as well. So,
are you in the machines, or you're managing, or what are you doing?
Nah, definitely on the tools. Yeah. Yep. So you're driving the smaller trucks. I haven't got the full truck license, but definitely on the tools. Yep.
Oh, fantastic. And what about your riding and racing at the moment? I think you've got had a couple of injuries the last few months.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I had a pretty good career as far as injuries go. Not too bad. And I fell off last year with my motorbike. I did supraspinatus, all the sort of soft tissue damage in my shoulder, the rotator cuff injury, tore my bicep, had to get that fixed. So I sort of tried to deal with it a bit, wasn't getting better, so I had to get that fixed. So that was sort of, 4.5 months off work or whatever, and, a bit longer than that off the bike, of course. And then I go and break my collarbone just before Christmas, my other collarbone. Lucky it wasn't the same shoulder. Had a plate in that for 22 years or something, which I bent the end of that up and broke the collarbone underneath it. So I had to get that repaired sort of 3 weeks ago now, and dealing with the recovery from that. So I'm feeling pretty silly with myself. Injured myself twice in, 7 or 8 months. And, yeah, I don't know, not happy about it, to tell you the truth. So
Yeah, how much longer you got off the bike?
I don't actually know. Like, it's at least another month, I would think. I don't know, because I haven't been back to the surgeon since the operation, so I'll see what he says.
Yeah.
This is the last plate was, like I said, a million years ago. I raced a national at Wonthaggi, just down the road here, about 10 days later, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
This one's a different sort of plate, much smaller. I don't think it's not going to be the same recovery, that's for sure.
No. Well, let's go back to the very beginning, mate. I wanted to read out a complete list of your individual achievements in the intro, but if I did, we'd be here all night. But for anyone that's interested, I will include them in the bio below this episode on the Mental for Moto website, so you can have a look there. With everything that's on your resume, I have to ask, like, when you look in the mirror now, how do you see yourself primarily? Still as a racer, as a coach, as a moto-dad, or is it a mix of everything?
I think the last one, Pete, I think it's a mix of everything. I'm still really competitive. I do a lot of mountain bike racing as well, so I love to compete still. I'm obviously not the same guy I was as far as the competition side of things goes, but I like to, if I'm going to compete, I like to try and win, that's for sure.
Yeah, and you still stay fit. That's pretty obvious.
Yeah, I'm not as fit as I like to be, but let's say I do like to get in the gym and do something, but it's also lack of time and sometimes lack of motivation. You've got children, you've got 3 kids, you know, so we've got to pay the bills, you know, got to get sleep. I live on just a few acres, you've got to clean that up.
Yeah.
Yep. So it's a lot of different juggling act these days, that's for sure.
For sure. So how did you actually get into riding and racing to begin with? It was obviously a little while ago. You're 52 years of age now. So tell me where it all began.
Well, yeah, my first ever race was at Wonthaggi here down the road. That would have been in the late 70s, before I even started really racing. My father, that's how I got into the racing, he had a bike shop back then. We lived on acreage, so even before then, I guess we had a mini bike because he was into racing himself. And then, you know, of course, we got some acreage. We rode around there. Then it just evolves into racing. Obviously, he was into it. He was a champion racer himself from, you know, scrambles back in his day.
Yeah, yeah.
And to road racing in the later years on a sidecar. So, yeah, definitely my dad was by far the biggest influence.
Yeah, so I believe he won a Aussie Motocross Championship in 1964. He got multiple podiums in other championships after that.
Yeah.
And then he went on to win 12 Australian Sidecar Road Race Championships. Is that right?
You've done your research. Yeah,
I have.
Even the year spot on. Yeah, no, he was really good. He was the same thing. He went after that sort of stuff. He raced an old Tirana.
Yep.
So like historic touring cars, and he raced speedboats, like in offshore power boats and all these sort of things. He had success in all those things. So he just had that competitive drive, and I guess it runs in the blood because I certainly do, and my youngest son, River, seems to have it as well.
Yeah, so he obviously mentored you when you were young?
Yeah, yes, he did. I mean, it's obviously he was always with me. He's always not pushing me. It's just different. He didn't coach me. It's totally different to my relationship with River because I'm a coach as well. I'm trying to be a dad. So you got to juggle those two emotions of being critical of, oh, shit, what the hell is he doing that for? To, you know, good on your son. You know, that was great. You know what I mean? So it's definitely got to check yourself with that side of it because it is a bit tricky. Because, like I said, as a coach, you're always looking for what they're doing wrong. That's what you do as a coach, you know. Then you don't want to be that way with your 10-year-old son, that's for sure, you know.
Yeah, so how do you deliver that information? I know you've got to look at what they're doing wrong, but then when you deliver it, it's got to be in a positive, constructive way most of the time.
Yeah, well, you know, as a coach, it's the same thing. If you were looking after someone else's kid at a race, you don't want to be the first thing you say is, what the hell was that about? You know, you've got to deliver some positivity first. But hey, you say, hey, but what about that? What'd you do that for? You know, so yeah, no, definitely. You know, it's lots of hugs and good on you. That was a good ride and all that sort of stuff. But you just definitely try and maybe over there, like, you know, try something different on that. There's part of the track and you can see lines that might work better. You definitely sort of think, what the hell are you going over there for? You're definitely saying a lot of that to yourself when you're on the track. So I do with a lot of these races with a good friend of mine, and his kid's very similar to River as far as ability. And it's so different. He's just he's sort of a bit clueless when it comes to this.
Yeah.
So he's just standing there with a smile on his face watching, and I'm sort of more critical what maybe he could do differently, I guess. But like I said, it's just trying to keep those things in balance, I guess. I think I'm going all right with that. But
yeah, for sure. Like, I guess as a coach, you wouldn't miss much. So, River's not going to pull the wool over your eyes at all with what he's doing on the track.
No, that's right. We did coaching just yesterday. I do it every week, and a group coaching. And River, like, we're trying to get him to keep the feet on the pegs more for some of these corners. And And he comes, we do the talk and we're going to go for this corner, and and he comes out, his feet on the peg, feet off the pegs. All the other kids are doing it. What the hell are you doing that for, Riv? Like, he just looks at you like, mate, I've told you everyone else can do it, you can do it, mate. So no, he's pretty good at listening to Dad. So which is, I guess, a little bit unusual, isn't it? Compared to a lot of dads bring their kids to me because they don't listen to them. So
that comes in the teenage years. I think that's a psychological development part of.
I look forward to that then, hey?
Yeah. So what sort of communication did your dad have with you when you were a junior, that influenced the way you rode and raced?
I guess as a younger years, he was never a yeller or anything like that, He'd just encourage you. All he wanted was maximum effort. That's all he cared about,
So not the results?
No, he obviously cared about the results, but I think if you had a crappy result, I think he just didn't say much, And even in later years of coming to races when I was doing professionally, if I had a good day, he's up there and good on you, and then he's going off and does his thing.
Yep.
If you have a crappy race, you don't see him probably. So he's not. I guess it was just. I can only one time he ever sort of had to go at me, and that's as a junior racer, and it was because I was just didn't think I was putting the effort in.
Yeah.
It's the only time I can remember out of all those times he's had to go at me. So he was a pretty good dad like that. Yeah.
And now being a moto dad yourself and seeing how much time and money and just effort you've got to invest, you can kind of understand that too, that all you want back is the maximum effort.
Well, that's right. I think that's not just motocross. I think even I say to my missus, she's not very competitive. She's not competitive, I should say. And obviously I am. And I just think, I don't care what sport they do. All that matters is they put their best effort in, That's the way I look at it. Whether it's basketball or bloody footy or whatever. You go out there, put your best effort in. If that's good enough, if it's not, it's not, That's the way I look at it. But motocross is such a big investment from time, money, and everything else. But going back to my dad, he's been helping us out there with that side of it with the racing. I remember saying to my dad years ago, not years ago, but listen, if River ever races, I'm not sure how I'm going to afford it, He's like, oh, well, if he races, maybe the Poppy Jeff can sponsor him, So it's been a bit of help. It's been good.
So was he involved through your whole riding career as a junior in your pro ranks, and now is he involved with River as well?
Yeah, he was. I mean, the pro ranks was just a spectator, a dad, because he wouldn't. I race for all the teams, so I go there, fly there, do the gear bag. He would often fly there himself and go and he's out there watching with his stopwatch around his neck. Everyone knows my dad. He's got a stopwatch around his neck, maybe some binoculars as well to watch the races. So. Big supporter, was always pretty cool, so like that. So yeah.
And you said he had a shop as well?
Yeah, we had a motorbike shop, Honda and Yamaha shop for years. Had about 40 years, I think it was, in Dandenong.
Yep.
A really successful shop. The last few years, it was he sort of hung on to it for that time to hand down to me and my brother and I. My brother ran it for quite a few years. And just as retail gets tougher and tougher, just in the end, it was not a viable business really, and so we got out of it. So yeah.
Was that something that you were sort of keen to, an area of the industry that you were keen to work in?
Yeah, it was. It just seemed like it was a bit of a natural evolution, But as the shop was getting tougher to make it work, that was about when I was winding up my career.
Yep.
So I did, when I finished racing, I was working, even the last few years of racing, I worked there twice a week, Mondays and Fridays. I figured Mondays I'm recovering. Yep. Fridays I'm not going to do much anyway, so that's why I did it that way, so it didn't interfere with my practicing and training so much, and then I worked full time for a couple of years. Then we got out of there. So since then I've been floating around doing the main thing. But this main thing, CSA, is what I've been doing the last 7 or 8 years to pay the bills.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's talk a little bit about your junior racing career. Obviously, with 30 Victorian titles or 30 plus Victorian titles under your belt, you found success pretty early. I
had junior success. Won Australian Championship. Same thing. Lots of seconds, too many seconds. But lots of Victorian titles. As a junior, I had some really good competition. Victorian motocross was really strong back then.
Yeah.
Back in probably the 80s we're talking about, sort of early 80s to late 80s as junior racing. But yeah, then obviously Vic titles with, I don't know when I won my first Victorian title as a senior, maybe 92-ish, something like that, And then often it was 125 and 250, two classes, and often I'd win more often than not through those years. I always did the state title, so that's why, honestly, I wouldn't know how many I've won.
Yeah.
Then there's Thumpercross titles and Victorian Supercross titles and all these different things. I honestly, I wouldn't even know, but I would have to be at least 30. So.
Did you race Supercross as a junior as well? Did you have that opportunity?
Yep. Yeah, I remember Heathcote Supercross. There was always junior supercrosses back then. So all those supercrosses, there was so many back then. There was always a junior class, an 80, and I was not a very confident jumper as a kid. So it took me a while to get onto that, really, to get on top of it, I guess.
Yeah. And did you gravitate towards the Supercross once you obviously got the hang of it as a junior? Did you gravitate towards that? Because it's been a pretty big factor in your success like later on in your career as a professional as well.
As I said, our junior 80s, 125s, all that side of it, I definitely was not the best junior at that. I definitely was better at motocross than supercross. Once again, I think with the jumping side of it, but I don't know. I guess as motocross back in my day, which is a long time ago now, supercross was a part of it. You did more supercross than motocross. So if you weren't good at supercross, you were not going to be making any money. You had this sport, you know.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it's clearly the opposite. You know, there's a lot of kids, and they're getting more into motocross now, supercross now. But yeah, motocross is the major part of the game here.
Yeah, definitely. Well, on that note, one of the things that you wanted to talk about today as well was the state of junior motocross. What are your thoughts on the current state, and you know what the events that we've got now look like, and the level of riding that we've got now?
I've been going this junior thing for a while with the Yamaha Junior Racing. I managed that for well over 10 years. So and I think the biggest thing was the Victorian motocross, maybe in 2011, 12, 13, 14, we had a lot of Australian champions coming from Victoria. But unfortunately now, the last few years, there's been almost none.
Yeah.
And my last few years of doing the Yamaha thing, there was almost none, like in all the classes, and hardly any podiums, and that's really gone away. Now, it's hard to put a pinpoint on why that's happening, but you go to these races this year, and this year in particular, it seems like the Gippies are really strong. They had good entries. So there's nothing stands out to me, but it seems like New South Wales and Queensland are far above the level of Victoria as a general, as a riders, you know, and I don't really know why. So maybe COVID, you know, we keep going back, blame everything on COVID, but Victoria was more affected by COVID than anyone else.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think that's a long shot blaming it on that. So
Yeah, but I think it may be just a little bit of luck of the draw. I mean, You've got a lot of interstate riders now at the top levels coming to Victoria to train and to live down here. So, yes, they're winning titles for Queensland or New South Wales.
Yes.
But they're based in Victoria, like Ross Beaton's program, and there's a couple of other coaches down here that have like big intensive programs as well. You know, they've got riders that are winning championships at all different levels from juniors up to the pro ranks. So maybe it is.
Well, but the tracks are obviously good enough to do it, aren't they, if they're training down here on these tracks? A lot of the tracks are also private tracks they've got. Access to tracks is a big problem.
Yes.
Where do you go riding during the week in Victoria? You know, unless you know someone, you got somewhere, you cannot ride during the week. And that's a big problem, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the strengths of Ross's program is he's got access to a lot of private tracks.
And that's, honestly, I mean, he obviously, and you're riding with good riders all the time, but that's a big attraction for Ross's program.
Yeah.
Hey, I've got somewhere for you to ride 4 times a week in a different track.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, that's, if you want to do it, be serious about riding, you've got to have that variety, and you've got to have access to these tracks.
So when you look at the state of the Victorian Junior Championships at the moment, I know historically, you know, the rider numbers, the number of rounds, the way that they prep the tracks has sort of varied a lot over the years. So, you know, over the course of your career as a coach with the Yamaha program, as a racer, and now as a moto-dad as well, like how do you see the way that the current championship stacks up, you know, as to the decades before?
Well, the decades before is a huge difference. Like in my junior days, there was never ripping at the tracks.
Yeah.
The tracks were hard as the table.
Way I like them.
Or you're riding on good tracks, maybe one thaggy with good soil. But if they didn't have good soil naturally, you're riding on hard packed tracks. So you watch a video from Ballarat or whatever from back in 1986. It was a dust bowl.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just what you did. And that's most of our practice tracks are always dust bowls too. So as far as the joy of racing and having fun, being able to twist the grip, it's way better now. But sometimes it's harder to pass, maybe with tracks that are really rutted because they get quite one line or slot car-ish, you know.
Yeah.
But as far as junior tracks, they don't really rip them that deep. But I think in general, the tracks, the preparation is better nowadays for sure than certainly my day, that's for sure. As far as what they've done in the last 10 years, I don't see a whole lot's changed really.
Yeah. So you don't think that sort of the state of the state level racing has played a part in that lack of having a Victorian, you know, national championship champion at the highest level?
I don't think racing side of it. I think, like I said before, I think a massive part of it's nowhere to ride.
Yeah.
It's very hard to find someone to ride during the week. You can go there on Saturday and Sunday, but what about Tuesday afternoon after school? Somewhere to ride. And I think, especially when kids get to that 14, 15, 16-year-olds in the later years, you need to be able to ride. If old mate over interstate or somewhere else got somewhere to ride, he's going to develop much quicker than you are,
Yeah.
So I think and then competition breeds success as well. So maybe it's a bit of a lull. Like I said, it's maybe the way it is. It's a bit of a lull at the moment, and maybe it'll come up. But, Cody Dice and Liam Andrews and Jed Beaton, all these people I had on my team back in the day, they had success at the Australian Junior Championships, and they were the best in the country, really.
Yeah.
Certainly some of the best. But it just hasn't happened for a while from Victoria. That was sort of the 14, 15, 16-year-olds, so the top of the junior racing. And that has been a while since that's happened from Victoria.
So when you were running that program, were those guys riding midweek, and were there more places to ride midweek at that time?
Well, maybe. Cody was from down at Mafra, so they had access to Mafra. They rode a lot for sure. So that's a big part of his success at the time, but he probably got burnt out, maybe rode too much, By the time he got to 17, 18, he was probably over it. So that's the other downside of it. When you ride too much as a kid, you get to the time where it really matters and your motivation's going low when it needs to be high.
So as far as River goes, does he ride midweek as well? Do you have a track at home like a lot of the junior kids these days?
We do, but it's only just for 110s and stuff. So noise is an issue. We live on acreage, so he does ride. It depends how keen he is or how hot it is or whatever, but he does ride a few times a week, but just on the 110 at home. And we normally train 1 day a week at my local track so he rides 1 day a week during the week.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think bike time is a big thing. He's still out in the 110. He's still carving ruts out. He's still doing little scrubs, doing monos and whatever else. So that makes a big thing for bike skills for sure.
So do you think the midweek riding is something that is critical to the junior races these days if they're going to find success moving forward?
Well, it might take them longer in a day bike time is how you're going to increase your skill level, with the right guidance. But it's not the be all and end all. It just means if the kids you're racing against, they're riding more than you, then it's going to be tough to keep up because they're going to develop every time they get on the bike.
Yeah.
So it's not the be all and end all, but it's definitely bike time is definitely a big part of it for sure.
Yeah. Well, on that note, let's talk a little bit about your coaching because it's been a massive part of your, off-bike career. So you had the Y-AIM program, but how did you actually get into the coaching from the beginning?
I don't know. Some of my earliest memories of coaching was Cameron Sinclair. Obviously everyone knows Cameron Sinclair and his brother Mick, and I lived at Narre Warren East. We had a track there when I was growing up. I remember they come out, did some coaching there. I think maybe Ken knew Dad or whatever. And I remember getting Mick to try and do a race start on the KX. We were talking about this not long ago with Mick, and he's trying to do a race start on the KX60 back then, not even 65, KX60, and rev it up and dump the clutch because he kept like he was being a bit of a pussy about it. Make some noise and rev it up. And he dumped the clutch and looped it out. I still remember that. And this is, he's got to be no more than 9 years old then. So
well, that's I raced against Mick on 60s out at Hallam. Back in the day.
And that shows you. Well, that's probably 30 plus years ago. That's where I get my 30 years from. That's probably one of the.
Yep.
And I did more coaching with even Adam Monier and then back in their early days when they're on 80s and stuff. So, and I was probably riding professionally. So I did a little bit on the side. And then with Urive, coaching program back then, Full Throttle and all this sort of stuff. So we did some coaching for him. And then did my own schools and that as well when I retired with the Y-AIM program, which was a Yamaha thing. Yeah, so I did a lot of followed the Victorian tracks around, the Victorian title tracks and Gippies and all that sort of stuff. But I don't do that so much now. I still do coaching weekly and schools regularly, but I don't travel around the state doing it.
Did you ever have any thoughts of doing it like, say, Ross Beaton is doing now, where it's a more intensive program, it's a full-time thing? Did you ever look at it as a potential career once you retired from professional racing?
Yeah, I looked at it. It's not something, I don't know, I guess have the right either motivation or the right guidance to make it work. Just doing coaching at a track like I was doing, it's not something you can rely on because you've got weather issues, you've got how much they want to charge, and that was getting more and more and more to run a school. So, you can make a school, you can make really good money on a weekend, and other times you make bugger all. So to make a living out of that when you've got a family, it's a lot of pressure, So it's felt like it was always something on the side. So something I enjoyed to do, and you obviously make a bit of money out of it. So, and I just love seeing riders develop. And certainly, I remember being at a Victorian Junior presentation for when I was doing Yamaha thing, and the amount of kids that was coming to my schools, and I like to thank Cameron Taylor. It's pretty cool. Like, it makes you feel good. You see these kids getting success and got a smile on their face, and I've made a small part in that. It's cool.
That's unreal.
Yeah.
When you look at the riders that you're coaching, what's your focus? Like, some coaches will focus on technique, some will be on the mental game, some are on fitness, some are on the intensity. Like, do you have a particular area that you focus on, or are you looking at the rider as a whole? Because you've been around for a long time, so...
Yeah, I have been around a long time. I don't do much with the off-bike training side of it. It's just technique for sure. And a lot of my riders, the track, I've got some really good riders, some kids that are very new to it. So it's all about technique. And as far as I'm concerned, River, my son, he's good at it. It's all about technique. And if you've got a good technique and they've sort of got the right mentality, as in some kids want to go fast, some kids don't.
Yep.
But if you've got the technique to go with that want, then they're going to go well. But you've got to have the technique right, so that, the footwork and the body work and where you sit down, where you should stand up. And to me, that's everything. And that's how you're going to stay, I think, safer for a start. As far as the mental side of it, I mean, everyone's different, but you've got to believe in yourself for sure. And I think if you've got, so we'll go, I guess, chopping and change a little bit, but go to my later years riding, being fit, being strong, know that I was one of the fastest guys at the end of the race. That gave me a lot of mental strength, so.
Yeah.
But for kids, just drilling to be about, and the parents I coach, I just say, you've got to have the technique right. We've got to get this right to be safe and to ride fast,
Yeah.
We all want to go fast, but we've got to do it the right way, I think. So anyway.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
So what do you see some of the sort of strengths and weaknesses of the current generation of riders that come to you for coaching?
Well, that technique, that jumping, like go back a million years ago when I did it, jumping wasn't really a thing. We just ski jumps and tabletops, and there's certainly no scrubbing and there's no legs off and the swag and all this. You know what I mean? The style just wasn't there. We rode well, but it's just so different, and so the kids are so much more advanced. Footwork wasn't a thing. Look at a photo from Ricky Johnson in 1987. Look at his footwork back then,
Yeah.
And he was a hero. They're horrible, but nowadays you got a 10-year-old with the feet perfectly placed, like it's just that wasn't a thing. It wasn't a thing in my career, footwork, but I think my footwork was okay if I look at photos, but it's not a thing,
Yeah.
The back out and the hips, the hips out and all that sort of stuff, the Jet Lawrences and I'm just, obviously Jet is just unbelievable, and we all think the same thing, and you're just constantly rewinding what you see him do on the track,
Yeah. So that transition to technique in modern day riders, do you think that is massively influenced by, the internet and the access to be able to see guys like Jet and break it down and have it in slow-mo? Because, I even know when I was a junior, I was hiring VHS tapes from the, Brock Glover. I had a Brock Glover coaching tape, but it was very, very different to, what kids have access to these days.
I think you just hit the nail on the head. We can access what happened yesterday today, or the same day, actually. You can access it on the same day. You can see what they're doing. And even with my coaching, we're trying to keep the feet on the pegs more. You look at the best guys now. Look at Roxon and Tomac and Jet. They're taking their feet off the pegs less and less and less.
Yeah. So,
and you're looking at the footwork, all that stuff, and you say, listen, some of these kids, they probably don't know who I am as a racer, and they'll say, listen, you've been watching the Supercross, yeah. See how much they keep their feet on the pegs, yeah. Well, this is what we're trying to do this for, because it's, it's just part of the evolution of the sport and trying to keep up, I guess, with the technique a little bit, because, my technique is not Jet Lawrence. It's not bad. It's not Jet Lawrence, but you want to try and evolve what you're trying to tell them for sure, I think, anyway.
Do you think Jet Lawrence is sort of the technique-wise and skills-wise sort of one of the best riders that we've seen in the last few decades?
Not one of the best. I think he's easily the best. Yeah. And I think all the professional riders in America are trying to be as close as they can to Jet, because he's that much better than most of them. So I think everyone are watching him go, oh, fuck, I better try and get to try that. I better try and do this. Cooper Webb's not. There's no way they're not watching him and trying to emulate sort of what he does.
Yeah.
In some ways. Some of them just can't do it. Most people can't do what he does to a total, but they can do little bits and pieces maybe.
So what do you see in Jet that makes him so amazing? I totally agree with you, but what do you see as an ex-professional racer?
His balance, the way he can put the bike exactly where it seems like he wants. Some of these little tricks where he hops over bumps, and I think he breaks the track down. I think he's...
The creativity,
and he's riding at the speed he's going, which is ridiculously fast, it's in his mind he's riding at 80%. And so he can make decisions before it's happened easier because I think everything's coming at him slower.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know, it's a thing he's got. You know, other people are riding 100% and everything's coming at him fast. And it's hard to make those little things where you can jump off that braking bump and land down this one because you're too busy charging into the corner. But he's just does things a bit different. Like we all see things, like I just said, jumping braking bumps, jumping off a wall jump, halfway up the wall jump and scrubbing over the top of it. Well, that's the sort of shit we rewind all the time. Go, fuck, now did you see that, you know?
And do you find that has influenced the way you coach and the things that you're coaching now as well, like the current generation of riders?
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. We always talk about that sort of stuff because everyone's a fan of Jet, you know. So that's why River, my son, he was number 8. I'm number 18 on my bike, but that was before Jet, by the way.
Yes, yeah.
But he's number 18 because of Jet, you know.
Yeah.
And he wants to be, now he's a B grader. He wants to be 118, but it's someone else has got it, you know. So yeah. Anyway, he's a hero to most of these kids, and so he should be.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right, just changing the topic a little bit. Tell me about your role as the Yamaha Junior Race Team manager. You know, what did that entail? What did that involve?
Well, first of all, I started doing that. Ross Beaton did it. There's a guy, Roscoe Holden, back in the day, he did it, and then Ross Beaton did it, but he wanted to be a racer still, and was going to be on Suzuki. Because Ross was really good back in junior. He raced for Yamaha as a junior racer, and then under 19. Then he sort of decided he'd rather make some money, I think. So that's the way I thought it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I ended up with the Yamaha thing. At first, I didn't want to do it when I was racing because it was too much. I was working as well. So then they sort of asked me, and I said, nah, and then ended up doing it a couple of years later. So with the Yamaha role, you choose your riders. You choose back then you had to get the sponsors, you know, the gear, the whatever, the tyres, everything else. Yamaha supply the bikes, the parts.
For the riders?
For the riders.
Yeah.
So as a junior racer, that is the best gig ever. Because
massive,
they're getting at least maybe up to 4 bikes a year, couple at a time.
Parts?
Pretty much all the parts they need.
Yep.
All the gear they need. So honestly, most senior riders now riding Pro MX don't get as good a deal as they do, you know. So most of them don't. So
I'd say 95% of them, yeah.
And I used to say, some of these kids, this is the best deal you're going to get unless you get to the top of the level at the pro level, you know.
So in terms of the gear, did you have to organise those sponsorships and those deals as well as part of the program?
I did in the early years, and in the later years, that ended up as a Yamaha with AXO and all their stuff. So Yamaha has Faceta, so we started using their products. So that job got less complicated, I guess, that side of it. But in the early years, it was Fox or Thor or whatever we were using. So oils and all sort of stuff. Like oils was Yamalube, of course. Yeah. Tyres and everything else. So that was part of the deal, and that was, being in the industry so long, has made my job a bit easier, having those contacts, you know. So you end up going back to those contacts where you know people, and it always makes it a little bit easier.
And I can imagine the riders on the team would have come from all over Australia. So did you coach them? Did you mentor them? Or did you just sort of manage them at race events? So what was your role?
Well, my role was Victorian riders, and Tassie, so we had Jed as well. But Jed was sort of Victorian Tassie. It's hard to know which he is these days. But yeah, so just Victorian riders. Okay, so you do coach them a little bit. They always come to my schools when I was going around doing all the Horsham or wherever the races were. So they always come to those ones for sure. So they're riding a track, so you're helping them in that way. But the biggest thing, especially when they get older years, was the mentoring. You know, helping them with their race lines and where to start from and how to approach the race and all that stuff. That's where the big advantage, I think, to having back then. They had guys like myself or Shane Metcalf in South Australia. Other people, Shane Booth, and all these people who have raced at the top level, which they don't get these days. So they definitely had an advantage like that for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned Jed Beaton. Who else did you have come through the program? Is there anyone that we'd know these days?
Well, Cody Dice was really good, and he won the under-19 series when he came out of juniors. But like I said, just motivation dropped, and that was sort of the end of that after a couple of years.
Rips.
Big lad, but he goes all right. Yeah.
Yep.
Jed, and then Liam Andrews. Yep. He was really, really good.
It's a shame what's happened with his career.
Few too many injuries. That was always his, I don't know, he'd be getting right at the top and he hurt himself again. So, but I had a lot of belief in Liam for sure. And I know Craig Andrews, his dad, was my main competition back in my CR80 days, you know. So,
is he any relation to Stephen Andrews as well?
No. Stephen Andrew, Craig Andrews.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, so different, yeah. Job Dunn.
Yes.
So that was my last sort of top rider, you know, before I moved on from there.
And I think he's destined for some big things.
Yeah.
He did really, really well at AJMX last year.
Yeah,
he looked really, really good. So
I was speaking to his dad a few weeks ago just about that. It sounds like that's the first time he's really put it on the map at the national level. You know, he's had the potential to do it, but it's the first time he's really done it. You know, so which is really cool.
Yeah, he stood out against some older, more experienced riders, and like the aggression, I think, is something that I haven't seen in him before. I've seen him obviously race all the Vics, and it was a really good progression to see.
Yeah, it's cool to see. I really get on well with his family. That was it's one of the relationships we had with the family. Back to the Yamaha thing, I'm half the time you're picking the family just as much as the kid.
Yep.
Because, you know, I have to deal with the dads and the mums more than the kid, really, because they're the one that ringing me, ordering the parts, ordering this, ordering that. So if you got one of those mad mini parents or dads, you stuff that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll give that kid a swerve. So it's definitely you're picking parents as families as much as kids, you know. So as a package for sure.
Is that something you see? And I mean, you've got a great perspective now because you've had it as a coach and now as a moto dad. But you know, you already sort of touched on it. But the parents, especially at mini racing, it seems to be a 50cc thing. That's really obvious.
50s. I hate the things.
But yeah, how do you sort of see the current state of parents and their involvement in racing? Is it good or is it too much or?
Well, I don't see the current state. I think it's always been that way, you know.
Yep.
I don't think it matters what sport you're going to go to. You're going to get parents which just take it too far, you know. Are the kids racing for themselves or are they racing for you? And that's what it comes down to. I think a lot of these dads are way more invested than the kids are. See it all the time. And they've got people with the microphones on, with people riding around and they're yelling at them through the microphones, you know. I don't know what they're yelling for the kids.
Yeah.
You know, but, you know, it's, like I said, that's a massive investment for these parents to go racing. But, I mean, some of the parents need to chill out, that's for sure, big time. So you've got a kid that's a C grade 65 rider and dad's yelling at him in the pit, you know, I mean, what are you doing, mate? You know, like it's just, you know, but there's also really awesome families too. So
100%.
Yeah.
So how do you balance that as someone that's competitive yourself and has, you know, been a high achiever in the sport, and then now you've got a son that's racing and progressing quite rapidly from what I can see, both in his technique and you know, even his results on track. Do you try to keep it light and fun, or like do you push him to try to succeed? Like, how do you sort of approach it as a parent?
Light and fun for sure. I think, I don't know, it sounds bad. A lot of these parents who are over the top, they've probably never done anything. You know what I mean? Certainly never done motorbikes at that level.
Yeah.
You know, what else they've done, well, who knows? I don't know them well enough, but I just think someone like myself, I think if you've done it yourself, you've been there yourself, I think you don't need to put that pressure on someone, you know what I mean? Out the external pressure. They should, if they're any good, they want to do it themselves anyway. Encouragement, you know, it's biggest thing, encouragement, support. It's one thing, Riv, he's only just started, you know, he hasn't had tough days yet. So that's going to test him out. Days where it's really muddy and you can't pick your bike up and you can't start it and all those things that, you know, that's going to test him out. So he's had...
Test you out as well.
Well, test me out as well. Like, pick it up, start it, you know, all those sort of things, you know. At least that's the 50 dads. That's really... You got kids that can't pick it up or can't start it and they're, you know, bawling and like, oh, Jesus, it's supposed to be fun, you know. But he started racing in May this year and he didn't have a mud race all year, you know, or barely a mud race. So he did really well. That's one of those dry winters we just had.
Yeah.
So he's got that ahead of him. You know, it's going to be times where, you know, he gets good starts. It makes it a lot easier for him. But you can have times where it goes a bit pear-shaped and you see how he handles that, I guess.
And how do you handle it? Like, are you nervous watching him? You know, he's definitely picking up the speed and he's getting faster. He's got really good style and technique, like you said. But how do you go watching him?
Well, technique, once again, I don't get nervous for him crashing because he doesn't look like he's going to have a crash.
Yeah,
you know, not ever, but he doesn't get out of shape. He's really good like that, so that's great. You know, not watching him go, with one eye closed, like some of these kids are. But you know, I guess you want him to go out there and be safe. You know, get through the first corner. I really emphasise how important, and once I've always done with the Yamaha thing when I did that was with my rides, just starts how important it is, how much easier your day is, how much safer your day is, and how much better your whole weekend's going to be if you can be, you know, in the top 3 or 4 or 5 every time. So. It's amazing amount of people who, you know, how'd you start? Oh, they're pretty good. Oh, come from top 10's a good start. No, it's not. You know, you go to a Victorian title. There's only, you know, a handful of top riders. If you're not in the top 3 or 4 or 5 every time, there's something wrong.
Yep.
You know, and if you're a national rider, you go back to do a Gippies, you should be getting in the top couple every time without fail. You know what I mean? So that's a good start in my mind. So you've got to get to the point where you believe you're going to get a start. And I talked to River about this and so do you think you're going to get a start or you want to give, I know I'm going to get a good start. So he believes it already, which is a huge advantage for him, I think, going forward. So
yeah. Does he enjoy the starts? Because some people get freaked out and some people love it.
Yeah, no, he's only started in May and you never know how they're going to handle a start. He hasn't done one before, but straight away he wasn't phased by it, I think he got a whole shot his first race meeting down at Currumburra at the Gippies, so
yeah.
He was hanging off the back of it and so I think he did have a big crash at maybe Rosebud this year in the first corner. So that was his first sort of wake-up call, I guess. But, it doesn't seem like he's not backing off anyway. So I guess he gets good starts and, always third gear starts in concrete, it makes a huge difference. And all these kids I try and help or whatever, just put in third gear, mate. It makes it so much easier on concrete. Dirt's different, that's for sure. Yeah.
Would you like to see him ultimately progress in the sport and make a career out of it one day?
Well, yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about this, but making a career out of motorbikes has never been harder, at the moment. He's so far away from that side of it. We'll just keep progressing, having fun most importantly. And, he'll do plenty of winning, I'm sure. Whether he gets to that point, he's only 10.
Yep.
So, yeah.
As long as he's still enjoying it, that's
that's right. Also kids that are riding flat out and it's all or nothing at this age, it can get a bit much for them, So,
yep.
And they might get to 16, 17, 18 and the other distractions, the girls and the alcohol and all those things come along and
yep.
Kids go either direction, but it's depending on how motivated or how keen they are, how much fun they're having and all those things.
Speaking of the state of Pro MX and making it as a pro rider and Supercross we can include in that, what do you see when you look at, say, professional, quote, racing in Australia these days?
At the top level, as in the best riders, it's probably better than it's ever been, They've certainly getting paid more than ever been as far as to ride the bike. But down from those top few riders, it drops away severely, and it's a very, very sharp tip of the iceberg, They fall off that and you're lucky to make enough money to pay your petrol in the car, which is sad because of lack of prize money. And that's something we can talk about. I think it's a big, big issue with there's almost no prize money these days, and it's if you can get fifth as a privateer, you get fifth on a day, and you can't even make half your prize money back, half your entry fee back. That's a problem. It's a problem, absolutely a problem. Yeah.
So what do you think needs to happen, to fix that? Is it a case of sponsorship? Is it a case of like the promoters putting more money in? Is it a case of trying to get more spectators and getting revenue that way? Like, what's the solution?
Well, long time ago, not a long time ago, but when I did it, it was, might be $1,000 to $1,200 to win a national, right? And we're talking 20 years ago, 15 years ago, and still $1,200 is still $1,200. Nowadays, it's almost nothing. You got fifth place, you might have got $600. It's still something, That's gone away. Why has it gone away? I don't know. Thumper Nats was a big thing. That was a real big series back in my day. And that was the first national series that all us riders did for nothing, as far as prize money goes. We got sponsorship bonuses. But apart from those top three riders, you got paid nothing. And I guess they got away with that. The riders were showing up, the teams were showing up for no prize money. So maybe that's a bit of we can get away with this without paying prize money. I think there was open races. You always raced for prize money, always. No, you didn't do a race meeting. All from my professional career. I'm not talking about the national level. I'm talking all these other races. There's always prize money.
Yep.
And it's pretty much always not prize money now.
Yeah.
So is it the expense of running the races? I'm sure that's gone through the roof between insurances and permits and all that sort of stuff. Cost of preparing the track and all that sort of stuff. So, and then probably the sponsorships got less as well. So all those factors, maybe there's no money left to give prize money,
I think the internet has a lot of blame can go on the internet now because for companies, potential sponsors, especially big ones, like everyone's promoting, if you're wearing Fox gear and you're not getting Fox gear for free, they want to present it as a sponsor. So you've got riders out there that are putting it all over their social media and giving these brands visibility. Whereas I think before the days of the internet, that wasn't the case, certainly like social media anyway. So for a lot of these brands, they actually had to pay money to get that visibility, and that went into the purses. Whereas today, like, I don't see a lot of the industry companies, like your big gear manufacturers, the multinational ones, manufacturers, like none of those guys are actually putting money back into the sport in sponsorship. And I think that was different in your day quite a lot.
Yeah, well, I think for sure. I mean, but you're telling me that Honda and Yamaha don't put money into the series these days? Of course,
I don't know about into the series. They put it into the teams.
So why does?
Well, Kawasaki did last year. They were a sponsor.
So so I mean, at the nationals, is there not Yamaha signs or Honda signs around the track at all? No, they're not.
Not unless they're a title
Yep.
sponsor of the series.
But also to run a team now, look at your Reeves team, is bloody huge. The amount of money that gets put into that team is
100%.
And it's often there's a few riders, obviously Kyle, getting paid really well. It drops away really quickly, So, but they're paying. Charlie Cannon, she gets decent money as well to ride a bike where women would never got paid anything. So there's a real positive side of things.
Yes, yeah.
But my first riding for Honda, my first factory ride was out of High Ace. You got bikes and parts and about $5,000. That's what you did. You paid for your own mechanic. Yep. That was a factory rider back then. But we got a few bonuses. It might have been $1,500 to win a race or something, a national race. But you got prize money all the time, and you still made a living out of it. So it's very different nowadays. So that's for sure. But maybe the cost to run a team for Honda back then was bugger all.
Yeah,
nowadays they're spending millions of dollars, or certainly close to $1 million. Honda would be putting in, that's for sure.
Easy.
Yeah.
I know one of the satellite teams last year put in $400,000 to run a Pro MX and Supercross season. Yeah. So,
well, I'm just saying. I mean, Honda in general. Honda, your Reeve gets money from all sorts of places.
Yep.
I know how much Honda put in, but it's a lot of money.
Have to be.
And to run that team, well, shit, that's a whole other story. So, with the amount of people and staff and the accommodation, I mean, you hear some of the bills.
The truck drivers and
the amount of people they're flying to the races, and then they accommodate all those people, and then at a capital city for Supercross, they'll be spending $80,000 or $50,000 in accommodation and flights every weekend. It's a lot of money.
Yeah. You said it just before, but there was a lot of regional races, state level races that were money races back in those days. Yeah. We don't see any of that now. Like it's really your regional races, which are amateur and junior races. We've got the state level where Victoria's probably got one of the better championships in the country at the moment.
Yep.
But there's nothing in between. There's no regional supercross. There's very few arena cross. There's certainly not money races. How were they able to accommodate all those different races back in the day? Was there just more riders?
Maybe there's more riders. There was less series. Like motocross was maybe 3 rounds in the early days. Then it was 5 rounds. And then when Kevin Williams got involved, it became more professional, that's for sure. But the expense probably to do it all went up for the teams, the presidents. I mean, I don't know. Do we need a massive semi-trailers all the time, or do we better off making them smaller so there's more money to go around for the riders? I don't know. I'm not sure we all need big semi-trailers, but we have, a lot of our tracks can barely hold them, that's for sure. But the sport, when you walk into the track, it looks amazing. When MA got involved, I think they've done a really good job with sort of they're promoting the riders and all that, a lot more professional, that side of it. I'm sort of removed a little bit from that very top level in racing in Australia. Still like to watch it and but I'm not really involved as such, So
yeah.
Yeah.
What about Australian Supercross? Like we've seen the series go from 3 rounds to 4 rounds to 5 rounds this year, potentially 6 next year. I think the presentation of the series has definitely gone up. The venues, the crowd numbers are getting up there. I mean, you raced Supercross through, I think, what was one of the golden eras of Supercross, with the Supercross Masters, the Australian Supercross Championship. Rod Laver Arena sold out. Adelaide Entertainment Centre sold out. Little kids and their dads there just screaming in the. And I think we're sort of starting to get back to a level where it's got that, not nostalgia, but that level of prestige.
Yep.
But like, what do you see when you look at Supercross these days?
Well, it's definitely coming back, which is awesome because it's such a great spectacle and it's a great spectator sport, and families like to go and watch it, and I think people like Jet again. They're bringing the eyes back on the sport. But why did Supercross go away? Like Supercross almost went away. Like I used to race more at a national level easily, way more Supercross than motocross. Then we had probably anywhere from 10 to 12 races for Supercross Masters in a year. Then you had maybe a couple of Victorian Supercross races, and then you had Queensland Supercross races. You had another promoter used to run them in Dubbo and Coonamble, all these different country towns. So wouldn't you do 20 Supercrosses a year?
That's unreal.
Or maybe more.
Yep.
You know, and then as well as you're doing the nationals and then sometimes thumper nats as well. So all these different things. There's a lot, but the teams were a lot smaller. But at the same time, we had Supercross bikes, motocross bikes, thumper nats bikes, and we're racing all series, all overlapped. So we'd race over in Western Australia, come back and do a motocross race, or maybe a thumper nats race in South Australia, go to Western Australia, then come back and do a Supercross in Adelaide. So sometimes the teams had to try and juggle 12 bikes, all these different to juggle, like get bikes sent over here. So it was a real juggling. It's a very different time. So
did Supercross pay better?
Yes, definitely. I mean, as a prize money, absolutely. But maybe a rider nowadays might get $12,000 or $15,000 to win a Supercross. Maybe it's more than that now. I'm not sure in Australia, but back in my day, you might have got $1,500 back in the early days. I mean, but to win my first Supercross in '95, which was 31 years ago now, was $8,000, and that was for 2 nights. You could win that.
That's definitely a lot more than the prize money now.
You know? And that was Sydney, Brisbane, Adelaide, Melbourne. It was all $8,000 to win each one.
Yep.
You know, I remember Anthony Gobert. He was, you know, a lot of people listening to this might remember that name. He was an amazing rider. He was definitely loose, to say the least. And back when he was turned 16, 17, he straight away was winning all these Supercrosses. And I remember he said to the promoter at Adelaide, he'd been up all night drinking or whatever else, and at the motel. And Chris Dale was the promoter back then, and he was the one guy who really made success at Supercross in Australia. And he said, "Hey, Christo, I'll see you in Melbourne. I'll get another effing $8,000 off you there," you know. You know what I mean? That's the story, and that's what it was. And he did, and he absolutely did, you know. Yeah, very different time. So I was very fortunate to race in those times. It was certainly the golden era as far as Supercross goes in Australia. But it's good to see it's coming back. And you go to events like Marvel, you're like, wow, this is cool. This is way bigger than anything we ever did, that's for sure. Yeah.
So, I mean, you guys raced stadiums that were predominantly 10 to 15,000 spectators. You know, now we've got stadiums that hold 50,000, 100,000 people.
Yeah. Yes.
And I'm not sure, you know, what would be better for the sport, having more rounds in smaller stadiums or having, you know, these massive events that we've got and trying to fill these huge stadiums. I mean, there's probably an economy of scale in having a single round and, you know, you've only got to build the track once and do all the stuff that goes with it. But, like, would you like to see more Supercross rounds? And do you think it's better or worse in the stadiums that we've got these days?
Well, the ones like Marvel, it's amazing. But the amount of money it would cost would be horrendous with all those stilts you've got to put underneath or props that put under the floor. Then, of course, you've got to get the dirt in there, and it's a time frame, the security and everything else. So it'd be very hard to come out on top of an event like that. But you've got to sell a lot of tickets to pay for it, that's for sure. So, you know, the Newcastle or someone like that where the expenses would be a fraction of it, that's going to be the future of making money out of the Supercross promoting, because, I mean, you can't run Marvels, 5 or 6, 7 Marvels. It's just not going to work. There's not enough people in Australia, you know. Yeah. It's unfortunate this year when that whole Adelaide and Queensland debacle having on the same weekend was unbelievable how that happened, you know, and that's just, how's that good for the sport? So yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's lots of people got opinions on that, and I don't think it'll happen again, but it happened this year, or last year. Yeah,
I think unfortunately there's some politics involved there, but like you said, I think they've both parties have learnt from that because it hurt both of them. So
absolutely, I mean, the riders obviously they had a bigger, you know, star list up in Queensland. Then you've got riders who want to do both series. They couldn't do World Supercross because they're doing so costing riders money as well. You know, it was a really unfortunate situation.
And I think that was the biggest casualty of that clash was it robbed the Australian riders who do the championship the opportunity of competing in both series, which is what we've seen in the past.
Well, CDR Yamaha didn't do the World Supercross because they couldn't do both. You know. Yeah. So Jareve somehow done it. He does both, but that's Jareve. He's different.
So for the riders, like one of the talking points that you had jotted down was the future of being a professional motocross rider. Like, what are your thoughts on that? What has to change, or you know, why was that something that you wanted to talk about?
Well, I just don't know if it has to change, but it's to make it in this sport in Australia, to make a living out of it, to make it. Obviously, I think you've got to look past Australia if you want to be successful, as in financially successful, but there's not too many people who can do that. There's obviously some that can. it's just such a small tip of the iceberg here to make it. If you're not getting paid, off the team to do it, and unless you're the best rider in that team, you're probably not getting paid much either. It's really tough, It's such a great sport, and everyone wants to be the best they can. Geez, it's tough to look at this sport and say, I want to be a professional motocrosser, because it's bloody tough to get to that point. Because half the field are probably professional, but they're not making any money.
Yeah.
So it's not really professional. That's just
100%.
They just haven't got a job,
Well, some of them do,
Some will have a job as well. Some are lucky enough their parents put them through the racing, everything else, but they're probably not lucky to make $5,000 out of the sport. Well, not make income of $5,000. No, $5,000 this is before. Then they've got to pay for the racing, which obviously they're losing lots of money, but they're doing it because they want to do it. I don't know. It's just a really, really, really tough place to get to the very top of this sport in Australia at the moment, and sort of get to the point where you can make your money. You've got to be really special. Some luckily are that, It's just going to be to encourage your kid to be Jet Lawrence. It's a tough ask, isn't it, to get to that point where you're going to go, we're going to make millions of dollars, because there's not many people doing that. So, yeah.
Speaking of the tip of the iceberg, so when you were at the peak of your career, the pinnacle of your career, were you able to make a living out of racing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I raced professionally for 15 years. I'll say professionally. I made money for 15 years out of it. So, yeah, I was getting paid to ride and get paid sponsors, and I get bonuses and prize money. So I bought my first house and I paid that off quite quickly. I probably made more money back then than I do now.
And that was through your salary?
For salary and prize money and bonuses,
Yeah.
The salary was the maximum I would have got paid was probably $50,000 plus a few other sponsors. So it's not huge, but you also got bonuses out of all the other sponsors, and you got prize money. So, you're certainly making decent money. And we're talking, 20 years ago now. So that money means more now. So
yeah, cost of living wasn't quite what it is now.
No, it's not. So I never made hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, I raced overseas and was successful there as well for maybe a German Supercross series I did. Made really good money doing that. So I was lucky enough to make a decent living out of it, and something I love to do. And yeah, like I said, I made money for 15 years out of this sport, which I'm pretty lucky to say I did.
Yeah, well, that's a perfect segue. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about your racing career.
All right.
We hope you're enjoying the show. Here at Mental for Moto, we can only do what we do because of the sponsors who support us. So please stay tuned for a couple of brief ads and make sure you show these legends some love.
Are you getting arm pump, fatiguing after just a few laps, or feel like you're often fighting against your bike? Today's motorcycles have been designed and built to suit a broad range of riders, conditions, and riding styles. This one-size-fits-all approach, however, means that when it comes to your own riding, your bike is often not handling and performing at its very best. Whether you're a weekend warrior or an elite-level racer, Fastline suspension will help you unlock your riding potential by ensuring your bike is set up perfectly for your specific needs. And with the right setup, you're guaranteed to go faster, fatigue less, and ultimately have more fun riding your motorcycle. So what are you waiting for? Contact Adam at Fastline Suspension now. Fastline Suspension, set up for maximum performance, precision tuned for you.
There's nothing more refreshing after a day at the track when you're sweaty, grimy and exhausted than taking a dip in the pool. Southeast Pools specialise in building high-quality fiberglass and concrete swimming pools across the Peninsula and Gippsland region, and offer a range of designs to suit every lifestyle, yard size and budget. So pick up that phone, give Trav at Southeast Pools a call today and be ready to take the plunge this summer.
Hero helmets have won over 125 motorcycling world titles with world-renowned superstars including Antonio Cairoli, Jeffrey Hurlings, Martin Muscan, even Jason Anderson. From the world stage right down to the grassroots motocross scene, Arrow is the title sponsor of the Gippsland Motocross Championships and even supports up-and-coming local legends such as Memphis Stravina and Zan McIntosh. As one of the lightest and safest helmets on the market, when it comes to protecting my most important asset, I choose Arrow as well. To check out the range of Arrow helmets, head into your local dealer today or click the link below to visit the website.
At Mental for Moto, our mission is to give the unsung heroes of Aussie motocross a voice. From grassroots racing right through to the biggest events in the country, sharing the stories you won't hear anywhere else. From the privateer chasing the dream, to the junior rider who's pushing for their first win, the mechanic who works late into the night to get the bike ready for race day, to the track builder who turns a pile of dirt into a work of art. This is the beating heart of our sport. We're able to bring these stories every week to thousands of Aussie moto fans, thanks to the generous sponsors who share our vision. If you're interested in the advertising packages that we have available, or just want to show your support, please check out our website, www.mentalformoto.com, and we can tailor a package to suit your needs. Now, let's get on with the show.
All right, let's talk a little bit about your time as a rider. Now, you've done so much in your career. I'm not going to list individual results, but I just wanted to summarise it a little bit. So, like I said earlier in the show, you've won over 30 Victorian motocross championships. You've won Aussie 125 and 250 motocross championships and finished on the podium countless times. You've won Aussie Supercross championships. You've won a Pan-Pacific Supercross championship. You came 14th overall in the 1996 AMA Supercross Championship in the USA. You've won Supercross Masters. You came second in the German Supercross Championship. You've raced Motocross of Nations. Or since retiring as a pro, you've also won a bunch of Aussie Vet National Championships as well. And so, there's no way we can cover everything that you've accomplished as a rider in the space of a podcast. So let's just start with your career racing in Australia. As a professional, I think your first year as a pro was in 1993 for Honda. Is that right?
Close. First championship I won was 93,
Yep.
and I was still working as an apprentice motorcycle mechanic then. That was on a CR125 back in, like I said, 93. And 94, I stopped working and went full-time.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was for a factory team?
No, just through my dad's shop.
Yep.
Back then, we got some bikes off Honda. My dad was always, like I said earlier, big supporter. We had a really good bike. He used to buy HRC parts for it, so we had really good bikes, really, really good bikes. And he would drill everything and make it lighter, and not titanium. We had titanium axles and all this sort of stuff.
Wow.
So really good bikes. So I was very fortunate that way. Would love to have that bike still, but I don't, obviously. Yeah, and then the next year was the factory team out of Ohio.
Yep.
So yep.
Well, to start off, tell me about that transition from amateur racing to professional racing. How did that go for you, and how was it as an experience?
Well, you got the junior side of it, which junior finished about 1990. The senior side of it starts then, which is Gippy Centre races back then, and Victorian titles, and then Aussies, which might only be a few weekends of the year as well. So it just evolved, I started doing national. The first time I went senior, I did a national over in Western Australia. I got my ass kicked, I think, on maybe 91 or something like that. I think you rode 125 one day, 250 the next. That was back in the two-stroke days. So it just evolved, and then 93 come along and everything clicked, and I think it was 3 or 4 rounds, and I think I won maybe 10 out of 12 races or whatever it was. So I won most of the races. So.
And what were you doing sort of midweek during that time? As you're transitioning to a professional level, were you going to the gym? Were you riding midweek? Were you racing every weekend? What did your schedule look like?
Yeah, well, I think I left school end of year 11, and I went to work as a motorcycle mechanic for my dad. It was just one of the things I was talking about being a chippy, but we talked about, listen, you're going to want to have time off and everything else. You're probably better off working here. We can do it that way. So that's what, so I think I remember some of the mechanics used to take me riding,
Yep.
knock off work at midday and maybe once a week or something it was, that was tracks like Frankston track and all these tracks, and we had access used to have keys for tracks back then. Westgate was a big thing. Everyone used to ride Westgate. Didn't need a key there. So that was a really big training track for Victorians, and I think it's a big reason why Victoria is very strong. Westgate take a lot of credit because it was always rough, always tough, and everyone could access it.
Yeah, and back in those days, like all tracks, it was always hard pack and square edgy and exactly like the sort of tracks that you were racing on in the two-stroke days.
Yeah, well, very different. Like nowadays, obviously you're railing ruts and screwing the throttle on 450, but back then you had to ride very different ways. So on a Wednesday afternoon in March, you know what I mean? You weren't it was always sort of skating around and sliding around. So yeah.
So how did your first factory ride come about?
I think after winning that championship in 93, the 125 championship, Australian Motocross Championship, and then in 94, Honda must have asked us to be at a team, so they had 2 riders, ours was called Renthal Honda, and then we had another 2 riders called MC Mart Honda, and that was Glenn Bowell and Dale Britton, and myself and Lee Hogan with the other team. So it was as a team, but you just you drive your Hi-Ace there, and you get there and have a tent, and you park next to each other. That was really the team.
Yeah,
that's how it worked back then. You got some spare parts, a little bit of money, you had to supply your own mechanic, and it was just a very different time. So that was a factory rider back then. There was no, I think, Dak had a truck then, that would be the only one that did. Everyone else was just doing it out of hiaces.
So there wasn't 6 semis in the paddock like there is now?
Very, very, very different. No,
Yeah. So you raced, obviously, the 125cc that year.
Yep.
But you also came third in the 500cc Australian Motocross Championship in 93 as well, aboard a Honda, I believe.
I don't know. Some of these results, you've done some research, and I don't know. I don't know about that one. So
Yep.
I don't know. No, I reckon.
It's got Terralgan written after it. Was it a one-off round?
Yeah, it was a one-off round. But if I did that, I would have rode a 250. I didn't have a 500 back then.
Yeah.
I had a 500 in about 2000 or something, just for more of a trail bike. And I used to do some Vic titles on it. That's about it. So
Yeah. So, but you rode both classes then?
Yep.
In 93?
No, 93. That if the Aussie title was just a one weekend job for that 500.
Yep.
And then the other one was a 250 125 series. So as a series.
Yeah. And how many rounds were in the series?
3 or 4.
Yep.
I mean, like I said, going back to that vague memory again. So I mean, Broadford, Tasmania, a few other rounds. Yep.
Yeah. So you raced through the 2-stroke to 4-stroke evolution as well. I've seen you ride a 2-stroke now. You obviously rip. You seem to have a passion still for the 125.
Yep.
But like a lot of your later championships and better results obviously came on the 4-strokes.
Yes.
So for you, like, what was that transition like? Did you struggle? Did you sort of acclimatise to the 4-stroke quite quickly?
Honestly, it was my first 4-stroke would have been 02 Honda. That's when the CRF came out. So I was riding for Honda then.
Yep.
So I rode for Honda in 94, 95, America in 96, Suzuki 97, 98.
Yep.
99, 2001 and 2 for Honda. And the CRF 450 came out in 02, and I was the rider for that. And that was, it was great, having that power. Took a bit of sorting out, handling-wise. But, that was, I love that. And I think it was easy. It would have been harder going back the other way if you were a 4-stroke guy forever, going back to 2-stroke. But 4-strokes was easy because the power was plentiful, but it's also torquey and smooth and all those things that a 2-stroke's not. So
yeah. So you found the process quite easy.
Yeah, I did. But but it also took more strength and endurance to ride over a whole race, a 30-minute moto.
Yep.
That's definitely something that to try and finish off those races strong was definitely harder on a 4-stroke compared to a 250 2-stroke.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what about racing Supercross professionally? I think you won in 1994 a 125cc championship and the Australian
Supercross Masters.
Oh, Supercross Masters, 125cc champion.
Yeah.
And the Pan Pacific Supercross Championship. Was that aboard a Suzuki in 94?
No, 94 was all Honda still.
Honda?
Yeah, Honda was, and the Pan Pacific was like around in America, like Pontiac Supercross and Japan and Thailand and New Zealand, Australia. It's a bunch of rounds. India, which, that's an experience, I'll tell you.
That's crazy, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a real experience. I think I went the year before for maybe a race in India.
Yep.
Like a one-off thing. And then the 94, I'd already won the series before the last round. I said, no, I ain't going back because it was, atrocious.
So were you getting support to race? It's obviously, there's no benefit to the Australian market for a team to go race on a world level like that. So who was backing you to do?
Well, MA was the person putting you up for it. I guess the local promoters are paying for it. Maybe MA was, but they're flying you all around, supplying your bike at whatever round it was. So it was up to them to organise it. So, I can't remember the prize money or whatever, but that was just an international series, and it went for a few years, and Australia had a few riders winning that for sure.
Yeah. So were you part of like an Australian contingent going around together, or were there just individual riders?
No, there's always a few of us. Like Peter Melton, late Peter Melton. I remember going to India with him. There was a few New Zealanders and stuff like that as well.
Yep.
So it's obviously the Americans as well. There's all a bunch of people going around, and so it was always good fun. You're travelling around to some of these quite strange places racing dirt bikes. I mean, Thailand's not a strange place, but it is to race motorbikes, So
yeah.
And
so what was it like racing the 2-stroke, 2-strokes in those stadiums for the first time for you as a professional rider? Like I was going to the Supercross with my dad at that time as a kid, and I still remember that the atmosphere was just insane. The smell of 2-stroke, the engine noise and the crowd noise, because they were all like Rod Laver's at quite a compact stadium. The Adelaide Entertainment Centre's quite a compact stadium. Just the atmosphere. I don't know. That's one thing I feel like we've never gotten back since those days.
Nah, it's you think about how tiny they were, the tracks. I mean, Adelaide was bigger than Melbourne. Melbourne held more people, but the stadium, those floor space was the smallest out of all of them probably. But the atmosphere was awesome, and the crowd were really into it, and that's why they kept coming back. I mean, Melbourne at its best, we had, we might have had 10,000 Friday night, sold out 14,000 or 15,000 Saturday night, and they go, stuff it, let's run a Sunday. So we have a matinee Sunday afternoon, another 3,000 or 4,000 people turn up.
Yeah.
So it was, they sort of say, hey, to the teams or the riders, you want to come back Sunday? And we go, oh, shit, yeah, we'll do that. So it got put on us the last minute, and everyone actually went and did it. So, very lucky. I think it's a great time.
And who did you go up against? Like we had guys like Jim Holly and Fast Eddie Warren and like all those guys. There's some big names coming over from the States. I think it was one of the first times I saw Danny Ham was at the Supercross Masters, and he was like 15 or 16 years old. Like, who was racing against you at that particular time, say 1994?
94, under 125. And there's Joel Elliott and people like that from New South Wales. He passed away, unfortunately. He could have done something really special on the bike. He was a great rider. Craig Anderson in the later years, he was a bit younger than me.
Yep.
So, but 93... Oh, geez, 93, 94, it's obviously a bit vague on who I actually beat.
Yep.
The motocross, I can probably remember a few more people, guys from Jason Marshall from WA, and some of those other had some really good competition every weekend. And then 94, I transitioned to the 250 class. So that was where the competition really stepped up.
Yeah. So in 95, you won the Supercross Masters in Melbourne on a 250cc as well.
Yeah, well, that's 252 strokes. That's the main class. That was my first win on the main class.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was a pretty good moment. Obviously, home crowd, mum and dad, and lots of friends there, and it was a big night afterwards. I remember that much. So yeah.
Did you have a preference for Supercross or motocross at that time? Like in the midst of, you seem to be finding a lot of success in Supercross over a short number of years.
I reckon in the early times, definitely motocross, but in those mid to late 90s. Mid-2000s, Supercross was definitely had a lot of success, and the indoors especially. I was a good starter, tight track, and I just had them worked out, I guess. There's a lot of us, we did a lot of those races. It's a bit of like arena cross in America.
Yeah.
There's a lot in common with those tracks, but we had a lot bigger jumps, huge jumps for the size of the track.
Yeah.
But I definitely was a bit of a specialist at those events, and I did enjoy them, and I think the bikes, imagine riding a 450 around those tracks. Like that's the thing is about 450. Back in the day, we had 500s. There's no way you'd ride them at Supercross. They're too much of a bike.
Yep.
But now we ride 450s, which probably weigh more and have more power, on a Supercross track. So
and I think arguably sometimes are too powerful for a Supercross track.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. So after that, after you won the Supercross Masters in Melbourne, the following year you went to the US in 1996. So you raced Supercross over there, and you raced outdoors as well.
Yep.
But what was that like as an experience? And was that sort of a natural progression for riders in Australia that were finding success? Or was that sort of something unheard of at that time for a lot of Australian riders?
I think I just wanted to do it. I think I felt I don't know if I didn't have a ride for 96 here, or honestly, but I just wanted to do it. So I pretty much saved up a heap of money. Went over there, bought a couple of bikes. I think once again, my dad bought a 252 stroke for me. I bought a 125. I rode Suzuki's only because the contingency was better on Suzuki, even though I was a bit of a Honda guy at that point. So bought a couple of bikes, bought an old ute, went across there with a friend of mine, Paul Timmins from New South Wales. He wanted to do the same thing. And so we brought some old Ford Ranger off the side of the road, and that's what we drove around in, So we actually went to do Anaheim the first round. Got there, thought we had everything sorted out, got there with our bikes, and they said, no, you can't do it. You haven't got your license sorted out. So we're nearly in tears, So we packed the bikes up, drove back to where we were staying, dumped the bikes, and then drove back there and watched that night, So I've been watching McGrath and racing. And the next weekend was Seattle Supercross. So we had a friend over there. He gave us a motorhome to use. We drove that, ripped the seats out the back of it so we could put the bikes inside the motorhome, and drove that up to Seattle through the ice and everything, no chains. And then the air conditioner, so the heater stopped working. All these things. I remember waking up at this amateur day, was the day before, and we're asleep in the car park in Seattle Stadium, or the King Dome was called back then. and it's snowing outside, it's freezing, and there's people rev tuning bikes at like 4:30 in the morning, get ready for amateur day, and we're waking up, what the hell? You know, we're fast asleep, got there at midnight or whatever we did, and those bikes, you know, it's just one of these things you remember, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
The bikes in that time, like nowadays, the Supercross bikes are obviously very different to an outdoors bike. Like the suspension, obviously has a lot of work in it. They're running different gearboxes.
Yep.
Sometimes the engines are detuned a little bit to make them, you know, handle better on the Supercross tracks.
Yep.
Back in those days, the tracks were obviously different. But like, what were the bikes like? Was it the same as your outdoor bike, or did you have work done to the suspension, to the motor? Were they set up very differently?
Supercross, the suspension's always been different. Certainly, as long as I've been around, the suspension was rock hard, really. You know, obviously motocross suspension's very different. So that's always been the same. But that was really the only main change. You did change maybe exhaust pipes to get more bottom end. You know, you might change the cylinder for more bottom end. The two strokes was, you know, you're talking about cylinder, you're talking about head, talking about pipe. That's really it.
Yeah.
The gearboxes were certainly never changed for Supercross and motocross. We might have maybe different triple clamps in the later years, but certainly no gearboxes and stuff like that. It's different linkages maybe, but in the early days, it was definitely suspension was the biggest thing. You just had to, you couldn't. I mean, Supercross, anyone knows, you know, it's so unforgiving with motocross suspension. You can ride it, but not very fast. If you make a mistake, you're going to pay for it big time.
So setting up a bike in the US for that year wasn't like an insurmountable challenge.
No, it wasn't. We just went to Pro Circuit. I had a bit of a in there, so I actually went and met Mitch, and he'd done maybe looked after some price or whatever. He'd done their bikes for us, just the suspension and the motors. But then we had nowhere to practice Supercross back then over there, so you just go into the race and do it. Then you go to a motocross track or Star West and ride your Supercross suspension around there. Then go and race. So good fun. So yeah, Seattle, San Diego. We drove across all the way to Texas and did Dallas and Houston Supercrosses. So I qualified for all of them except for Dallas. I think I fell off in my last chance and hurt my knee. But I think maybe 10th was my best result at San Diego. Yeah. And you said I got 14th overall. I didn't even know that before. Yep. So so I was competitive on a bike that was decent. Just with probably a cylinder and head done and a pipe and suspension done, away you go. But you just don't get to ride it. You know, there's no practice for tracks, that's for sure.
What was the culture over there for Supercross like? You know, you'd obviously had a couple of years racing in Australia in the indoor stadiums. Was it a big step up when you went to the US?
Yeah, it's a big eye-opener. I mean, we did have some big tracks here, but we raced at speedways, like a Newcastle Speedway for cars, you know. But when you go back to there, it's like the tennis centre on steroids, you know, or just like Marvel Stadiums, no different to that. So we had nothing like that back then. So it was definitely an eye-opener. The jumps were bigger, the jumps were steeper. So it was definitely intimidating. And when you haven't got anywhere to practice, it makes it tricky. But it was good fun. And, you know, I just went over there and did the races I could, did some of the outdoors, ran out of money eventually and come home.
Yeah. Who were the big riders over there at that time?
Wyndham was winning my class, James Dobb and people like that. So some tough competition. But it's very different. There was factory riders. You're talking about Pro Circuit team, which is like Casey Johnson, maybe David Pingree, these sort of people. Then you've got Wyndham and you've got James Dobb and a couple of Suzuki riders. But there's no other teams. And if I got top 10 results and whatever else, nowadays, you get some support. You'd be staying there, and because there's literally 30 teams out there. Back then, there was 6, 7 teams. You know, it's just so different. Most people were privateers and doing it at the back of a van.
Yeah.
So there's just a different. Like if 20 years after that, you'd get a hell of a lot more support. So. Yep.
So going over there as I guess a fairly young kid in your early 20s, were you awestruck like lining up over there and against some of those riders that you've probably seen on TV?
Yeah, I guess I was. But it's also different because you don't watch it. It's not the same. There's no internet. There's no photos. There's no anything like that. Like if you want to watch, if you can get hold of a race, it's on the VHS.
Yeah.
Who's got a VHS player to watch it on?
Or you're reading about it in a magazine.
I guess someone's downloaded it on YouTube or whatever, you know, with a really poor quality when you're watching it.
Yeah.
But it's it's just a different time. But it's always cool to go to those stadiums. I remember sitting in the crowd watching Anaheim. That was a really cool race to watch, and with the amount of people there, you've never seen that before. Sit amongst 65,000 people watching a Supercross race, you know.
How come you only went for 1 year? Was that just the plan from the beginning? Did you have plans to go back after that?
I would love to have stayed there and got a support to stay there, but I just didn't, and I ran out of money.
Yep.
maybe saved up 25 grand or whatever I had back then and burnt through it, and that was it. I said, no more money left. The guy I went with, he come back fairly quickly because he ran out of money really quickly. Cost him a lot more than what he thought. And I kept staying where I was living, so lucky enough there. But yeah, I think I maybe stayed for 6 months and then come back. I think I got some Hondas and did a few nationals here when I come back, and then in '97 come around, I rode for Suzuki. So
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, tell me a little bit about that. Your season, your transition to Suzuki. What informed that? Was there just no ride for you that year when you came back to Australia after being away?
Well, I guess the season started well and truly. So I kicked into a couple of motocross rounds, did okay, didn't do great. I rode the 252 stroke. But then Suzuki called, got that, and that was a step up in for my time at Honda back in the day to this. Is more professional. We had a high ace van, a big one, and a big trailer. So they were supplying bikes and a mechanic and parts and a wage, and they'd fly to the races. So I went back to what it is now. It starts to be where you're rocking up with a gear bag,
Yeah.
So that was a big step up in how you did things and the time you got to train and focus on what you need to do to improve. And my bike was really good. My 97 and 98 Suzukis were really good. I really enjoyed them, and they had good motors from Pro Circuit, and suspension. Took a bit to work that out. Bruce Linstall ended up local guy from down here. He ended up doing my suspension. Yeah, I had won quite a few races on that for sure. I think I got second at motocross and supercross that year.
Yeah, that was in '97 and third in '98.
98, yeah.
So a couple of successful years.
Yeah.
Did you see them as successful at that time, or was it like win or nothing for you?
Oh, successful, but I think we could talk about my mental approach. I think was a bit lacking, as in the self-belief. I think some of the people around me believed in me more than sometimes I believed myself, which was definitely, as an athlete, top athlete, that's everything, And I think, and they encouraged me sometimes to maybe get to speak to someone about it, and so maybe I was hesitant to do that. So look back at some of those regrets that you could have done things a little bit different. Some people just got that, like the Chad Reed, just got that belief, self-belief. They can do anything, anytime. No one can beat them.
Best guy on the line.
And that's everything, So it's some people just got it built into them, and some people maybe got it beat into them by their parents. Talking before about Chad and how he handles it with Tate these days, and his dad was super hard on him, super hard, and maybe their relationship suffered for it big time, but maybe that made him into a harder racer, So so what's more important about being a hard racer or have a relationship with your dad? I think I'd rather the dad side of it, So
I think so too. Yeah. But I think as far as Chad goes, at least from what I've seen, the apple hasn't fallen too far from the tree in his relationship with Tate.
Yeah.
But I think it is a better relationship than maybe he had with his dad, and it's definitely something that he's aware of. You see him talk about that as well. Was he a big influence for you?
Well, he was actually, in 98, he was my teammate.
Yep.
And that was his first year as a senior. And he sort of said, he actually not looked up to me, but looked across to me to help him with what to eat and what to train and stuff like that. But it didn't take long till he was beating me as well. So, but that's one of the things, So I look at that back, it was a long time ago. That 1 year, still pretty cool to say I was teammates with Chad Reed.
Unreal,
Obviously, everyone knows about Chad Reed, and he was an amazing rider. And I remember the amount of bikes and parts, because he was from Newcastle, the team was from Newcastle, and they would this amount of petrol he put through his bikes, the amount of bikes he went through was incredible. So, he wanted it, and he spent a lot of time on the bike. So,
you spoke about his confidence, and that's something that was obviously really apparent, when he was finding success over in the US.
Yeah.
But was he like that, from the beginning of his pro career?
Well, he didn't even want to go to the 125 class, put it that way. So he went straight from juniors to the 250 class and said, well, I don't want to ride 125s. I'm too good for that. Yeah. So that's his belief, It's like when he went to America, he was like, I don't want to ride 250s, like 254 stroke class. I belong in the other class. Yeah. And they said, no, you've got to start here. Yeah. So he was forced to do that, He would have liked to ride Vince McGrath the first year he was there, not the second. So, yeah.
That's something that Carmichael said about him, is that, like, he knew every time he lined up on him, it doesn't matter whether he had a bad day, whether he was injured, whether he'd had a crash in practice or qualifying. This is like he's talking about Chad. Yep. He said Chad always thought he was the best guy on the line and he was going to win. And it doesn't matter sort of what happened, but that's his mentality. And he said as one of his competitors, that was always something on his mind, like, I've got to go out and win because he thinks he's going to win.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard the same thing, and it's amazing. And he could get. I mean, end of the day, Carmichael beat him way more than Chad beat him.
Yep.
But he could beat him by 25 seconds. He goes out there next weekend and think he's going to win.
Yeah.
And that's
unwavering.
And that's something really unique, to have that. And obviously, so Carmichael talks about that. He knew he had to, even though he smoked in the week before, he had to watch out for him this week, So yeah.
Couldn't break him mentally that.
No.
Yeah. Is that something that you try to instill or you think it would be good to instill in the next generation of racers? Or is that something you think that just comes naturally to the individual?
I think it comes naturally. I mean, belief can come from results, come from hard work and all those things, to believe you've done everything you need to, but just that inner belief, some people have really got it, they're more than others. I mean, boxers and the way they carry on to the media, do they think the same? I'm not sure, but you need that sense of, I'm the man. You don't need to carry on about it. It needs to be self in it. I think some people just got it more inside than others,
Yeah, it's crazy because I think in moto, there's certainly something that I've seen in the time that I've been around the sport. Confidence can make everything. Like from one week to the next, you can't really drastically improve as a rider, but if you win 1 week, you can go from being a fifth place guy to a podium guy consecutively just because of that confidence, that change in confidence and belief. And
absolutely, mental's everything.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what sport. I think the very top of the spear, the mental's everything. So you do the work. If everyone's done the work off the bike, everyone's the same fitness, but they're not. But if they were, it's all about mental at that point. So
yeah,
yep.
And I think motocross really epitomises that. You don't see it as obviously in other sports. Like
no, you've got to fight so much, don't you? I mean, you've got bikes in front of you throwing massive rocks at you. So you've got that side of it, the pain, how much it's bloody hard to ride a bike at that speed for that amount of time. So
when you're tired.
When you're tired, it's hot, it's rough, it's everything, all those things, and someone's trying to get past you or you're trying to get past them, and it's a really, really tough sport, It gets a lot of rewards, but I think it's one of the toughest sport mentally because it beats you down physically, So, and then you got to try and keep that mental edge as well at the same time, and you got to do it twice a day, So that's the other thing. You got to get up. Okay, I've just done 35 minutes of racing. I am rooted, and an hour and a half later, you got to do it again. So yeah, it's tough.
Do you find, just to digress a little bit, but do you find that those lessons that motocross has sort of instilled in you, has that helped you in other areas of your life or just in life in general? I
think it helps you to believe you can sort of do anything, and there's no reason. One thing my dad always said, when he started, they probably started racing with 17, 18. He saw our old mate doing that. He goes, well, he's got 2 arms and 2 legs. You can do that. Yep. I can do that. And he always said to me, that's the way he always thought. If he can do it, I can do it.
Yep.
And that's what I say to River sometimes, He might have been riding along with you, but there's no reason. If he's done that jump, you can do it. Or if he's done that corner like that, you can do that corner, So just everyone's the same. You just got to work out,
The only person holding you back is you.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
All right. So 1997, before we move on, you raced for the Motocross Destinations for Australia.
Yep.
Tell me all about it, mate. I grew up like watching moto, and the Destinations for me was always something I absolutely loved and looked forward to watching every year. It was something that was actually telecast on TV a lot of the time. But yeah, what was that like racing for your country?
That was really cool. I mean, honestly, it was overdue. I should have done it a few years before that, especially on the 125. I was the best rider country on a 125 for quite a few years before that, I think. So there's a few politics maybe that got in the way there. So anyway, I got my chance in 97 on a 250 Suzuki.
In Belgium?
In Belgium, yeah. It was a really hard-packed track, so we went riding at Lommel or anything like that. It was a really, really hard-packed track, not a very good one. Andrew McFarlane and Troy Carroll, my teammates, we rode factory Suzukis. We got factory Suzukis, and they were pretty good, though. I think that weren't a massive step up from what I was used to, but they were good bikes. Yeah, Jeff Emig and Poole, once again, all those heroes you see about, and all the Munich, Pavorts, and all these people from Belgium. Pit Byrer, I think, won maybe that race that weekend. But one thing I do remember, they watered it on Saturday night like it had been raining torrentially for 3 days straight. Because honestly, it was a European thing to make it harder for the Americans, and it worked. I lost my goggles by about the third corner. That's how muddy it was, And the track was rocky like you wouldn't believe. So riding a 35-minute moto with no goggles on, it wasn't good, So it was a tough race, but I don't know. We got maybe midfield or something, 20th or something out of 40 countries, or 10th, no, maybe 10th out of
11th.
11th. There you go. So yeah, so we did okay.
Yep.
We didn't disgrace ourselves, but it was tough. I'm doing that first race, like I said, no goggles in rocks, like the biggest rocks you've ever seen on a track before. Yeah, it wasn't good, but I didn't get hit in the face, so that was the main thing.
And what was the crowd like there? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, historically, even back to the 70s, like the Des Nations has just had huge crowds. So
Oh, it was massive. It was lined. It was in like a Belgian village, you know. See, the houses are all real old style Belgian houses are all surrounding this track. You got all the people all dressed up like the villages, you know. They've got their little short shorts and their long socks, and they're on top of a van singing and dancing. Someone's got air raid siren. They're wow, wow, wow. Yeah, air raid siren, got the horns, the chainsaws, all that sort of stuff, you know. Never seen any of that before. Yeah. So everyone's riding around. The noise is incredible. Like, you're riding around and hearing these air raid sirens and all this. It's obviously a pretty cool experience, and I'm lucky enough to be able to do it, I guess.
Yeah. Is that one of the highlights of your racing career?
I mean, Des Nations, I mean, it's the race of the year now, isn't it? It really is. Out of all the racing in the world, that's the number one race, you know. And I was lucky enough to do it only once, but I did it, so that was cool. So.
How come you never went back? It was just the opportunity wasn't there?
Opportunity wasn't there, I guess. I mean, it's the next year, I certainly would have been aligned, but then you got Chad Reed comes up then, you know. 99, I was on a Honda. The Honda wasn't very good in 99. I started having a knee injury as well. You got Michael Byrne coming on, Andrew McFarlane. So, yeah, I mean, that was the thing. I mean, my time was probably 94 to 97, where I should have been like maybe every year, but I wasn't.
Yep.
And then in the later years, yes, I won some championships, but you got guys in America racing, Brett Metcalf and Burner once again, and Chad, and so you're not going to go over there at that point.
Yeah,
you know?
they're already halfway there.
Yep.
So, tell me about your career after that. You came back. I'll use your words for the next couple of years. You were a bit of a bridesmaid.
I said 97, 98, seconds and thirds, and that maybe comes back to a little bit that belief thing, you know. I had some crashes, 99 at Supercross Masters. You know, there's two crashes, one at an outdoor event in Queensland, another one at an indoor event in Adelaide, I think it was. Leading, land off a jump, lose a front end. See, this times where I got fourth instead of first, or you know, then you lose a championship by 2 points. So stuff like that, you know. But at the end of the day, it's my mistakes. You know, later year I lost an easy championship. It was easy. I had a massive lead. Yeah. And then because my bike let me down, you know. So it goes both ways. But I definitely got a lot more seconds than I would have liked. That's for sure.
All right. Well, in 99, you actually did a little detour back to the US to race an outdoor national at Hangtown. What brought that about? How did that come about?
Paul Gibson, he worked for Honda for years. He was a guy who supplied the motorhome back in 96 up in America. But he wanted to do it. So he bought a bike over there, got a bike all prepared, and he flew me over there, and we just went and did a national at Hangtown. Yeah. So 250 National, I think. That was the first year I remember watching Carmichael on a 125, and Talon Volan had a really good race. Yep. That's the first time I watched. I can't remember what it got, maybe 20th or something. The bike, the 99 Honda was a pig. It really was. That was the first generation alloy frame. And Paul I think he got pro circuit stuff, suspension. It was hard as rock. So I wasn't very comfortable, but it was still a cool experience, you know. So it's one of those things. I was lucky enough to do it, one of those races. And you look back at these memories, you know, it's one thing, 15,000 people, whatever there was there, maybe more. Yep. It was hot as hell. Track was a lot more hard packed then than it is now, that's for sure. When you look at the more mulch and everything else they put on the tracks. But still a cool track, so. And I rode it in actually 96 as well at Hangtown. But in qualifying, I ripped the linkage off my frame. There's a problem with those Suzukis back then. They were faulty, basically. There's a lot of problems with those things back then. But I ripped the linkage off the frame, so I didn't end up racing. So Yep.
So did you do any of the outdoors back in 96 when you went over?
Well, I did that one, which didn't go well. And then next week was at Glen Helen. And I borrowed a bike. Mitch Payton lent me a bike from Pro Circuit. So I raced, but I think that was the one, they did one round, like one race, and it was like 40 minutes, and it was about 100 and something degrees in Glen Helen. Yep. And it's in summer, and they get this, down there they have the Santa Ana winds, which push all the pollution from LA down to San Bernardino, where the track is, and you can't even see the sun, the pollution's that thick.
It's crazy.
And people were passing out while they were riding. My lungs, I felt like I'd been stabbed in the lung. I got back. You couldn't take tiny little breaths. You were just sitting under the car, just getting water poured on you.
Yeah.
And your lungs were that sore. You couldn't take a full breath because of the pain from the pollution. It was horrendous.
That's unreal. It's something we don't experience over here in Australia.
The track was, you look at it now, it sucked basically back then, yeah. Yeah, maybe because of the experience of the heat and everything else. It was not a fun experience, that for sure, that race.
Yeah, so that was Glen Helen.
That's Glen Helen, yeah.
How is that track like to race on? Like, it's definitely super iconic, and it's one of my favourite races to watch.
Yeah.
I'd love to go over there and watch a race over there at some point. But
it's a really cool track. And I went back in, we'll go forward a few years, but only because of talking about the track. I did the Vet World Championship at Glen Helen, and that was end of 2007. So I was riding for Honda, and so I rode at Glen Helen again. So that was a better experience, that's for sure. Didn't win, should have, could have maybe.
Did you race the pro class?
Yeah, well, the Pro 30 class then. Yep. So, and I got third, but I bent a disc, had no front brakes down a race, and then in one race, in the other race, I crashed while leading. So it was one of those ones that got away. But it was another cool experience. Took my dad over there, Bruce Linsdell as well, suspension. We had a good little trip for a week. It was good. So
Is that something you'd go back and do again?
I'd like to. Yeah, I'd like to. It's an opportunity hasn't come, and nowadays family and you got to try and get money to get a family holiday, let alone get myself to go to America and go on a selfish motorbike holiday. It's a bit hard to do. So
I'll drag Powley back over there.
Yeah, exactly. One day I reckon I will, for sure. Yep.
Awesome. So 2001.
Yep.
You're runner-up in the German Supercross Championship.
Yes. Yep, that was really cool. I mean, it was a 12-round series. So 2001, 2002. So you go November, December and January. One weekend was 2 nights. Another weekend was 3 nights, stuff like that. So then the one round was 2 weeks in a row. So it's 12-round series. I went over the first round, was at Stuttgart. Went over there, cleaned up both nights. Like, this is easy. Just didn't even get close to me. Got a good start. See you later. And I think first place was like a Audi TT or whatever it was. So it's worth a lot of money, And I thought, this is easy. And I didn't win another round after that. So so I went back there 3 times. So 3 trips over 3 months. So it's a lot of travelling.
Yeah, so you didn't stay over there.
No, I stayed between one of the rounds, but not for 3 months, Because it's in winter, the sun comes up at bloody 8:30 in the morning and goes down at 3:30, Anyway, it's a real cool experience. I got second in that series. Still really good cash. A lot of cash. Yeah, shouldn't say it in public. Coming home with money down my socks and money in my backpack and money in my jocks because I had more than 10 grand stashed. Well, more than 10 grand stashed. $10,000 limit. So I was a bit nervous coming in the country, but I got away with it.
So how much did you make over that year, if I can ask? Like over there racing the championship at that time?
Maybe 50.
Yep.
Yeah, something like that. So good money for
that time, definitely.
Yeah. Yep.
And obviously a lot of fun.
Maybe a bit more than that actually, because I think second was about 25,000 euro. It's about double your money back then.
Yeah.
Plus the prize, and you got start money every weekend as well as prize money. So yeah.
And in terms of the level, was it fairly comparable to the Australian Championships at that time? And what were the tracks like? Were they similar?
Arena crossy, like quite small. That's certainly bigger than Tennis Centre, but a lot smaller than Marble, So somewhere in between. But the dirt was really unique. It's the biggest thing. I remember got there, my bike, they set it up, had some sort of sprocket on it, looked like it was for doing monos, Doug DeMocus back in the day. It was huge, but I was like, no, change it. That's no good. And I said, no, trust me, you'll need it. And I went, oh, nah. And I got out there, because there's that much traction. It's like 100% traction.
Yep.
Because it's like the dirt's frozen.
Yeah. So it's got the moisture
so it's not
in it
muddy.
as well.
It's just like plasticine, You leave knobby marks everywhere.
Yep.
And so your bike feels like a moped because it's got no wheel spin. It doesn't rev up. So that's where the big sprocket comes in, So definitely unique. That's the biggest thing with the dirt. The dirt's just so tacky. And the track ruts up like you wouldn't believe. And they've got these little remote control rollers which drive around and they compress the track in. So there's little squares on the track from these remote control. Yes. Anyway, so all these little memories. It's pretty cool.
And what about the level of racing, and the riders that they had over there at that time?
Yeah, well, Brett Metcalf, he was doing that series with me then. I think he maybe got third. A guy that won the series he ended up riding for Red Bull KTM after that year in America, which was Joachim Rodriguez. and he rode for the Dakar quite recently. He's just stopped racing a couple of years ago. He rode for the Hero Factory team. For the guys who watch Dakar, I certainly do. Yeah, so there's some good riders, you know, and a bunch of Americans and a bunch of all Germans and guys who ride GPs and stuff like that. Yep.
Oh, fantastic. Well, then we fast forward a couple of years, and I find, like, when I look back at the progression of your career and especially your results, it was almost like you had a renaissance in sort of the mid-2000s, because you went from being the bridesmaid and you started winning everything again. So, well, at least in terms of on paper, that's how it looks. You got a second in MX2 in the Pro MX Championship. You won another Lights Supercross Championship in 2004, and then from then on, like 2005, you obviously had a really good year too.
Well, I guess I stepped back classes. I was riding the open class for basically 94 until this point. And in 04, I was riding for CDR Yamaha, and I went back to the Lights class for the Supercross. And I think it just comes back to that belief thing again. You know, of course, you've got good riders. The riders aren't the same level because it's in the 250 class. But you got that belief that I'm better than these guys, you know. And it's, I used to ride Supercross, the indoors. I used to often ride two classes, and I'd win the 125 class more often than not. My 250 class was the main one, but I knew I was going to win the other class because to me it seemed easy. And I guess, and it wasn't easy, don't get me wrong, but it comes back to that mental approach. You feel like you got it covered, you know. And I was really fit, I was really strong, and I was always the fastest guy for the last, 5 laps. So that knowing that how you're going to end a race, it gives you a lot more confidence for sure.
Were they sort of the peak of your Australian racing career, or do you look back at that early 90s time as being the pinnacle?
No, well, 93, my first Australian championship, my next one in 04.
Yeah.
You know, it's a big gap, isn't it? I've got a lot of seconds in between. So it was a pretty cool. And my next motocross was 12 years later, you know. So how many people have done that?
I was about to say that's why it was like a renaissance.
Yeah, I guess, I was always competitive, always keen, always trained hard, and it just fell together again, you know. For the confidence, it all rolled together. I rode for Serco in 05 and the motocross championship. That's that championship I won. The bike was good. It handled really well. Wasn't the fastest bike. I definitely wasn't a great starts on it, but always, like I said, always finished well. So I think Ryan Marmot was one of my main competitions. That's with KTM first come out with a bike, and their bike was so much faster than mine. But I was better at the end of the races.
And you won the Supercross Masters that year as well.
I did win the Supercross Masters as well. Back to 04, the year before, I remember motocross, the last round was at One Thaggy, and Cody Cooper was winning the series, and I was maybe 15 points behind or something like that. And I remember he put a hole in his cases the last race. He was pissed, and he was going real, and I won both races, but I was really a lap away from winning another championship by someone else's bad luck, you know. So anyway, that's.
Did that start your relationship with Yamaha then? Because you were with Yamaha for quite a long time after that.
Yeah, well, 03 Yamaha CDR, 04 Yamaha CDR, 05, 06 with Yamaha Serco. And then that was the end as far as professional racing with Yamaha. I went to Honda and whatever else. But yeah, I guess it definitely helped because I had success and won championships for him. It definitely helps you to stay in that Yamaha family when my career does finish, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like you had a lot of success in that sort of 04 to 06 period. You said you raced professionally to 09. So what happened after that? Did it sort of the results taper off, or what sort of led to the end of your professional racing career? Because you're still relatively young at that stage.
Well, 05, my last championship, I was 32. So I'm not that young then at this point.
Oh, yeah.
So, I'm already getting a bit long in the tooth, you know. I raced all the way up till I was 36. So in a day, your results you get a bit slower. Your results taper off a bit. People pay you less money because you're not winning. And every other time, all the years before that, every weekend you're getting podiums, you know. So, of course, then you're battling for top 5. So it just changes. And 07, I rode for Yariv team. He had a factory sort of Honda 250 team. Paid me good money. It just didn't work out. I had an injury, hurt my back. I had a Supercross crash at Avalon, really big, probably the only time I've been in an ambulance in my whole life. I was all right. I hurt my back though, but I was all right. Just because of someone else's stupid mistake. But anyway, that's what happened. So that really put me on the back foot for that series. And then I break my ankle through the year as well, riding motocross, practicing motocross.
Yeah.
So that year was a bit rough, and it didn't work out. And the next year, 2008, I rode for Uribe again in like a satellite Honda team on a 450 Honda. And 2008 Honda, for those who knows 2008 Hondas, they were a really good bike.
Unreal, yep.
I started out the year with someone doing my suspension. I had to have on Michelin tyres back then, and I didn't like them at all. But the main team, Honda team, on Michelin tyres, but they were on factory tyres. And I said, no, not use them anymore. I can't use them. And then they gave me good tyres. I got someone else doing my suspension, SPMX. That's when my relationship, not professional, like that side of it started with Powley. He was a good mate of mine. He did my suspension, and that bike was unreal. Then I started getting podiums on that and I was working at that point.
Yep, as a satellite rider.
Yep. Yeah. So when Shane Boyd and Marmot were winning, and I was getting some podiums, that was next, and I was beating the Honda factory guys sometimes.
Yeah.
So I was doing pretty good for someone who was a part-timer at that point.
Yeah, unreal.
And that was my last year, good year of motocross. I had another year after that, but it wasn't great. I was on a Suzuki then, and I didn't like riding that for motocross. So, yep.
I mean, one thing that I've sort of noticed for someone that's had such a long and illustrious career that hasn't really come up a lot until this last sort of couple of minutes, you don't seem to have had heaps of time off with injuries or massive injuries along the way. Tell me a little bit about that. Like, did you avoid like major injuries through your career? Is that what allowed you to race? Yeah, so deep
absolutely. I was, but that's come back a little bit. I wasn't a rider who rode on the edge, so that obviously keeps you from less injuries right there. But that maybe held me back from a few wins here and there. But, I said less injuries, So I had a knee reconstruction in sort of 2000. That was probably my longest time off the bike at that point. My longest injury I've just had on my shoulder, longer than even my whole professional career.
Yeah.
So I was very lucky that way. And I think if you can build your fitness, build your speed, build your confidence without too many hiccups, that makes a big thing. Look at Ryan Dungey and people like that in America, Same thing. Lack of injuries, build on it every year, So, so definitely got away with not too many injuries for sure. It's a big advantage and certainly a good thing I'm proud of, so.
That goes the other way too. You look at someone like Adam Cianciarulo, who just never was able to reach his potential because of repetitive injuries. Yep,
there's so many. I mean, Matt Moss, not able to potentially certainly did that, but he had so many injuries. But he was someone who always rode on the edge, So obviously he won a lot of races because of it. Had a lot of injuries because of it, because he rode on the edge. I remember he was my teammate like in 2008. We're talking. I've had 4 broken bones. He goes, I've had like 34 or 24.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and at that point, he's only 18. He's had all these broken bones, and I'm an old man at this point, and I've had just differences where he's really beat himself up. So
he's had plenty more since then as well.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, yep,
yeah. But he still gets around a track.
Certainly does. Yep. No, he's mentally really, really strong. That's a big thing.
He has to be.
Yep.
So, over the course of your career, like, who are some of the biggest rivals that you had while racing, and who were, some of the riders that impressed you the most that you raced against?
The biggest, Craig Anderson would be one that's through those 97 to 2002 sort of periods. That's one we had a lot of battles with. He beat me too much, but certainly more than I beat him, that's for sure. So that's definitely one that's a big rival. Troy Doran, back when I went back to the 250 class, he was another one from Victoria, good friend of mine, but we were very even as well. So he was a good rival in the later years. Yeah, there's some that stand out. Andrew McFarlane, all these different people. He was my teammate for a while as well. We were really even. Yeah, so a lot of really good. Michael Byrne, we were at battle for championship in '99 and on the Honda team. So yeah, some good riders, good that people know about, that certainly heard of, that certainly went further than I ever did with my racing. So yeah.
Yeah. When you look back now, is there anything that you would do differently if you had your time again?
I think, one thing's the mental approach. Definitely would need to improve, but I think I didn't get rest enough either. I was always thinking, I need to do more, and I think I didn't recover enough for the next weekend. So I think that, so that would be the one thing. I think the rest is more important than training, I think. So
I think that's something, though, that's only come about relatively recently, the importance of resting. And I still look at a lot of the young riders today, and I think that they're overdoing it a lot of the time.
Yeah, well, the guys with Ross, the amount they ride is incredible. They ride so much, but I think one thing with our series, how spread out is crazy.
Yeah.
8 rounds of over, how many months?
5 months.
5 months. It's incredible. And they've got to keep training for all that time, the amount of parts and bikes and the cost that is to the privateer guys to try and keep up that level for that amount of time, amount of fuel, amount of parts, amount of whatever. It's pretty crazy, So I think I'm sure none of them like it being that spread out. That's for sure.
Well, as Luke Clout says, he's a professional practicer.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
Does a lot more at the practice track than he does on the racetrack.
What are they doing national? They're doing 13 races this year. All right, that's not many, is it?
No. To be over the course of probably 10 or 11 months.
Yeah. And a lot of them don't do many state races either. So I think they should race. I mean, the Europeans race. They do a lot of international races, they call them, so that before that and after and in between. But it seems like America certainly don't do any. They don't need to. They're racing 30-something times a year. But maybe some of these guys here need to do more state titles and whatever else they got, Queensland state titles or whatever, just to keep themselves sharp and keep them, it's going to be good for them, I think.
No, for sure. So with all the success that you've had, however many years, I haven't got that many fingers. I can't count that far. Like, what do you think are your qualities as a person that has led to your success as a motocross rider? Because there's plenty of guys that have gone out and tried. Not many have had the career that you've had.
Well, you know what? One thing, I think the reason I got opportunities, even in my later years, where I wasn't maybe the best, I wasn't a guy that's going to win, but I was still able to get good results. And I think you've got to work with people. You've got to have a personality that people can work with, And if you're going to win, you can sort of be a bit of a dick.
Yeah.
But if you're going to get third and fourth, you want to be good to get along with as well, because you might be the second guy on a team. So, yeah, you've got to be respect everyone you're working with for a start. That's the biggest thing. I think give everyone respect and be relatively easy to work with. You always want stuff out of bikes. You want stuff out of yourself. You want stuff around. You want certain things you think you need to succeed at your sport, but you got to be respectful out of it. So I think that's a big thing.
For sure. So since your pro career, you went on and you've won quite a few vet national motocross championships as well. You're still racing today. So what keeps you lining up and you keep coming back? A lot of guys, when they finish racing pro, barely ever throw their leg over a bike again. Well,
maybe that's why I rode so long. I obviously like the sport, Some people just get burnt out by it, but I think I like the challenge still. I think it helps keep me. I'd rather do a 15-minute moto at the local track than go for a run for half an hour, that's for sure. I mean, not that I can run these days anyway, but you know what I mean? It's a good way to keep fit.
Yep.
And I think mentally it keeps me, I think mental side of racing dirt bikes for a living, then that just goes away. And that's one thing I think with the coaching and everything else that kept me in the sport. So that was one thing that helped me deal with not doing that anymore. A lot of those professional sports people struggle with when it ends, I just like the competition, I guess. Like I said, I race mountain bikes as well. I like the competition. I don't win much anymore. But when I race nowadays in the vet class, I still do it right, obviously.
Yeah.
And the last real competition I did that really meant anything was the 125 Cup. I did that sort of for a few years, 3 or 4 years in a row. Won out a few times, and you're riding against young guys in that too. So that was pretty satisfying. So, yeah.
You've got a bit of a passion for the 125. I mean, I saw you guys, you and Powley ripping around Crucix a couple of years ago at one of your coaching clinics. And every time I see you on the 125, you just look like you're having a blast, and you can definitely rip that thing. What is it about the 125 that you love so much?
Well, I guess it comes back to, when I started my career, you know how to ride them, you know how to get the ride out, the right out of the power, you know where to ride them, and you know how to keep your momentum up. And I think in the later years, I like the fact that you can wring its neck and it doesn't destroy you because, it's only got 40 horsepower, not 60. Yep. So you can sort of ride it. It feels like it takes less fitness to ride it. I can do a 15-minute moto. I can't do a 15-minute moto on a 450 flat out these days, that's for sure. So, yeah.
With the 125s, I mean, it's definitely a capacity that we see is being left out of the progression of junior racing these days. Like a lot of kids are going from 85 straight to the 250 or at least spending very little time on that 125.
Yep.
Do you think that is impeding the progression of those riders?
Yeah, I do. I think at 85 to 250, it's a massive step. And I think, once again, riding a 125, knowing what gear to be in all the time. Because you be in a gear just once, you're losing seconds, So to be exact, be momentum for your corners, all those things are 250. you can be quite lazy with, especially when you weigh 55 kilos. You know what I mean? When you get older and heavier and everything else, you've got to make the 250 is similar in a way because you've got to have momentum to ride them properly. But a 125, you need to be so precise.
Yeah.
And I think it's, and also you got kids that just aren't physically strong enough for them. Like it's, I mean, how many kids want to ride 450 when they're 16 these days? You know what I mean? So it's such a big step from, but then they want to throw them from an 85 to a 250, which weighs as much as the old 252 strokes did, you know? So I just think they're too much of a step, especially for some kids. That they should be doing both. If they can do both, they should be doing both, or they should at least start for the first couple of years, 13, 14 on a 125, and then step up from there. I mean, not everyone can afford 2 bikes.
Do you think that's something that should be incorporated into the racing? I know there's certainly riders that have taken it upon themselves. So one I can think of off the top of my head is Cooper Ford. Physically, he's quite small. He actually said to me, you know, he's 15. He said, I can ride a 250, but when it bites, I can't control it. Yeah. So he actually stayed in his first few races. Well, I think first half a dozen MX3 races, he rode the 125, which impacted his results.
Of course.
But obviously it helped his progression and it kept him safe.
Yep.
Do you think that's the way to go, or should they incorporate like a 125 class again into the Pro MX and the Supercross?
Well, yeah, maybe. But the problem is the MX or the 125 racing. There's not all the manufacturers have them. That's the biggest problem, you know. And if you could make MX3 class, imagine if it was a 125 class, that'd be perfect. But then it excludes half the field, doesn't it? Because they haven't all got the right sponsors or the right bike or whatever. So European have the 125 race, and it's huge, isn't it? What they call at the GPs, they have the 125 class.
Yep.
And that's massive. And I think the Europeans are doing it right when it comes to that. Yeah, I think it'd be somehow at a national level, getting to ride on the national tracks on a 125 would be great. It sort of helps keep them safer. They can ride a little bit slower, a little bit less weight, a little bit less chance to bite them and throw them off, like you said about Cooper Ford.
Yeah,
it's a great example of someone who recognises, hey, I'm better off on a 125 for now. So,
yeah, I mean, the cost of racing and running the events, like we already spoke about, is probably starting to be prohibitive. But I would love to see the Pro MX races as a 2-day format with the support class, whether it's 65, 85 on the Saturday, and a 125 cup, like an open cup that's open to anyone. So the young guys coming through can test their mettle against maybe some of the vet riders or the experienced guys that still love.
That's what I did. It was only a few years ago. It was a 125 cup, they called it.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was everyone. So it was more of a fun thing. It wasn't the best of the best riders doing it, but it was. That's exactly what it was. It was a support class.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that keep going for sure. I mean, I wouldn't do it these days. A bit long in the tooth for that.
You'd still rip around.
I'd still go all right, but I wouldn't. I certainly wouldn't win. So, but yeah, I still love to ride. I still got my 450 KX 450 at the moment, and injured myself again, hurt my collarbone, but I'm off the bike for a little bit. I'll be back on soon.
Yeah. So when we look at the Australian scene right now, not the guys that are racing overseas like Jet and Hunter and like Caden Manier, and you know, there's quite a few Aussies now that are making their mark on the world scene. Is there anyone that you've seen in Australia coming up that you think could be the next big thing?
Well, you've got to really think about this because, like I said, I'm not really in the loop at the top guys. Honestly, I'm looking at the back, the wall behind me there, and a lot of these guys I don't even know. These days, you know, you put me on the spot there. I have to think about it. So, yeah, no, I can't think of any right now. I'm not saying there isn't any. I'm just not thinking of any. So, yeah.
All right. So what's next for Cam Taylor in terms of your racing? Do you still have any goals or things that you want to achieve?
No, well, this year the plan was to do, like last year, like River just started racing, did for the Gippies. There's heaps of the boys, my friends, racing the Saturday vets. So the idea was to do that, but I injured myself last year.
Yep.
And I'm going to miss the first round this year too, I think. So the idea was that when River's doing some of these races, I might as well jump in and have a race as well. So that's really all. There's no goals as such. I thought that was the idea to do that. As far as the US stuff, I would like to do another race of that for sure. I haven't got any plans, but it's one of those things that it can happen fairly quickly if you make it happen. Getting a bike over there, that's the biggest issue. But nowadays, all those companies, the ride Dream Holidays or whatever they are, you can get a bike quite easily. It's got to get the money out. So
we're going to see you lining up though this year.
Yeah, definitely this year for sure. Yep. I would have been racing 130 in a few weeks, but got another plate in my shoulders, so it's going to keep me off. So
Vicks?
Nah. I'll be between River racing, probably the Gippies, the Vic titles, the Aussie titles, it doesn't. I can't justify going away for another 4 weekends.
Yep.
You know, away from the family. So the only way I'm going to get to the races and do a race would be if I'm just there anyway. So. Yeah.
What about the Pro MX Vet National redemption against Powley at some point?
Yeah, I should get up for another one of that. It's been a few years. Yeah, Powley got one over me
Cool
there.
him.
Yep, he did. Better pick a smoother track or something, I guess. Yeah, I don't know.
I think that still goes down for me as one of the best races I've watched, like bar none. The battle between you guys, like he had it that year.
Yeah.
He trained a lot for it. He had the fitness, you had the speed.
Yeah.
And it was that battle of wheels, like on a very brutal track.
Yeah, it was. I got a lot of arm pump. Yeah, absolutely. He was fitter than me, and I was faster than him, but fitter beat fast on that day, that's for sure, with a track like that. So I just couldn't finish it off. But he could. So hats off to him. So I've had one race. I raced once all last year.
Yep.
And
is that Sandmasters?
No, I like Nuttawading. This is
yep.
a local track, and anyway, I beat him, so it's all good.
So you got your redemption. Yeah. No, fantastic. Well, before I let you go, mate, it's been an absolute pleasure having you in the studio for a chat. Is there anyone that you'd like to thank or give a shout out to?
I've still got people who support me, you know, Thor and Alpine Star and Penrite Oils and all these different people who still support what I do with the coaching side of it. It's more about the coaching these days, not the racing, that's for sure. So I'd like to promote their products when I go to these schools and try and wear the Kawasaki shirt or the Thor shirt or the whatever. So it's good. I'm lucky to still get some support and stuff. I still get some freebies, which is nice, and I still like to get out there and do it. So
fantastic. Well, thanks so much for coming in and having a chat, mate. It's been a pleasure, and I know there's been a lot of listeners of the podcast that have been hanging out for this episode as well.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate it. Looking forward to see it comes out.
Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. We've got some awesome guests lined up this year, so make sure you subscribe to Mental for Moto and turn on your notifications so you can keep up to date with future shows. Massive thanks to Cam for coming into the Moto Asylum today for a chat. And to our partners for this episode, Fastline Suspension, Southeast Pools, Wolf Building Compliance, Iro Helmets, Ultimate Toy Haulers, and the February sponsor of the Mental for Moto Motocross and Supercross wall calendars, O'Donnell Motorcycles. And most of all, thanks to you guys for listening. On behalf of Mental for Moto, I've been your host, Pete Wolf. Until next time, see ya.